Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto leave the Hidden Leaf Village and married the demon part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The blonde ninja rolled over in his bed, trying to ignore the ray of sunlight that lanced through the dirty window into his eyes. He glanced at the fridge, taking a mental note that he would need to stock up on food again. He'd long since learned the perils of consuming expired foodstuffs since he had chugged a carton of expired milk. Was that his fault? No one had bothered to teach him such basic things. The third Hokage was busy, he had a lot he needed to do, but, most of all, he was old. He didn't have the youth to raise a child on his own, not anymore. Children, he mumbled to himself, rolling over onto his back. What was it like, he wondered, to have children? Or, better yet, to have parents? There had never been anyone to greet him, no one to chastise his bad behavior or to give him that sort of parental advice. The closest he had was the third, and he was gone now. Wiped out long before pain flattened the village, the closest he had ever gotten to family was Cheyenne. Why was it now, nearly a year later, that he thought of her? Naruto! Naruto! A shrill voice called out, banging on the door repeatedly. We need to report to Lady Tsunade. She says it's urgent. Granny? He asked, finally getting out of bed. By the time he had gotten his orange jumpsuit on, Sakura was waiting outside. The pink-haired kunoichi tapped her foot irritatedly, no doubt tired of waiting for her lazy-bones teammate. Hey there, Sakura. The young boy rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. You kinda caught me sleeping there. He tried to play it off with a chuckle, but the angry glance she sent him told him she was unamused. Feeling a small trickle of sweat roll down his forehead, he coughed into his fist and tried to change the subject. Is everything all right? Sakura huffed. I don't know. Lady Tsunade was nearly manic when she called me in. She told me that you had to get there at once. There was also a strange man there, a guy in clothing that wasn't from around here. Now that was interesting. Was it a new mission? He could use the excitement. There was only so much training one could do before the cabin fever set in. Naruto affixed a bold smile on his face and cracked his neck. Then what awaiting for you? You know how cranky Grandma Tsunade gets. With that cheeky quip, the two ninja leapt from the balcony and quickly began making their way through the village. It always had impressed him how fast they had rebuilt. Perhaps it was the will of fire at work, or the simple need to get something up and running in case more enemies came calling, but they had done a fine job. Although not everything was the exact same. As the duo paused on the roof of a building, the blonde ninja took a moment to survey the collapsed remains of a library. It had taken a scrape compared to the main target of Payne's assault, and even then a massive amount of brick and wood had sloughed off one of its sides. A part of him wanted to go down there and help the construction workers, but Grandma Tsunade would have his head if she caught him fooling around. Come on, Sakura urged before leaping away again. The Hokage's office was a familiar place to Naruto by now. Whether it was being scolded by Lord Third or being berated by Grandma Tsunade, that room had never been his favorite place in the village. Now, though, it seemed to radiate an aura of pure malice and unease. As if he were inviting disaster by walking through the door. Sakura, are you sure she was asking for me? She didn't mean, like, Kakashi-sensei or anything, right? He tried to laugh it off like a joke, but it came out weak and forced. Gah, quit being such a baby and go. His teammate wrapped him in a headlock and dragged him forward. In spite of his growing protests, she slogged onward before finally throwing open the door. Instantly, the young boy felt that his sixth sense for trouble had been right. The foreign visitor stood off to the side, his pacing interrupted by their presence. Within the room were only two others, Lady Tsunade and, surprisingly, Naruto's teacher, Kakashi Hatake. The boy gulped nervously as he felt waves of conflicting emotion radiate from them. The look on Tsunade's face could have wilted flowers, a mixture of passive amusement, immeasurable disappointment, and sheer frustration the likes of which he had never seen. Not even when he let slip her real age in front of the Jonin. Almost akin to her young, Kakashi looked to be on the verge of tipping over. At times he would glance at the blonde boy before just as quickly screwing his eyes shut and muttering something to himself. Weirdly enough, there seemed to be a sense of almost pride nestled somewhere in the ninja's complicated expression. Ah, Lord Uzumaki, we were awaiting your arrival, the visitor spoke in a clipped, professional voice. It occurred to Naruto that his clothing was familiar, strikingly so. I had hoped to approach you individually, but when I explained my reason for being here, the fifth Hokage insisted on holding a meeting. Did she now? Naruto's eyebrow twitched anxiously. The woman in question poured another dish of sake, downed it, and slammed the bottle down. From behind a stack of paperwork she cast a dark look at the young man. Brat, I swear, I haven't done anything. Not a single prank. He has nothing on me. I beg to differ, Lord Uzumaki. Naruto choked. Naruto, please, just let him explain, Kakashi began, only to be interrupted by his pupil. Come on, Kakashi-sensei. You know me. I would never do something like that. He hasn't even. You can't let them take me to jail. The boy cried hysterically, clutching to his sensei's vest. There's no ramen in jail, let alone Ichiraku's. Naruto, brat. Lady Tsunade smashed a fist into her desk, silencing the boy's moaning. Shut up and listen to him, the visitor smiled. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. Truly, Lord Uzumaki, this is a splendid day. I bring good news from the land of demons and Lady Cheyenne. Cheyenne? Naruto mumbled. The girl, more or less a woman now, had been a part of a mission given to him and his team. During the incident with the stone soldiers, he had helped her seal away the great evil that was Morio. It had been one of the trickiest, hairiest missions he had been sent on yet, to the point where he had nearly died. But Cheyenne, she was, or had been, special to him. They had bonded, and either due to the emotions running highly or the fact she was the last of her family line, for a night they had been closer. It was something Lee liked to rib him on from time to time, but to his knowledge that had been the end of their relationship. Short and sweet. Indeed, congratulations, Lord Uzumaki. When we of the land of demons heard the joyous news, why, we sent for a messenger to bring you back. What are you talking about? And what's with this Lord Uzumaki stuff? I'm just plain old Naruto, the man blinked. Oh? Were you not yet informed? Here we go. Kakashi sucked in a breath as Tsunade's glare worsened tenfold. Sakura rocked back and forth nervously, eyeing the three older adults in the room in anticipation. Naruto, for his part, was completely in the dark. What were they talking about? He had never been good at guessing games, and this hardly seemed the time. Will you just spit it out, buddy? The young ninja finally cried. Lady Cheyenne has given birth to a pair of healthy twin sons. It was as if the world came to a sudden halt. In that moment, everything seemed to still and stopped moving. Naruto was half sure that if he looked outside he'd see birds suspended mid-flight. His brain relayed the message again, then once more before it finally sunk. Oh, I'm happy for her, Naruto said woodenly. Indeed. She was so overwrought with joy that she couldn't wait to tell you. However, due to her being in recovery, we saw fit to bring you back ourselves. Me? Why would you ever want that? Ha 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 ha. His laugh was stilted and forced, a sure sign of shock. Kakashi stepped forward. Take a breather, Naruto. How about you sit down? Why, shouldn't a father be there to see his children grow up? A hammer of realization smashed down upon Naruto. In that moment all his delusions were shattered. Father, he was a father. He had two young sons in a distant land who he had never met, and had left before they were even born. Emotions flooded his heart and mind, too fast and powerful to differentiate at once. Fear, joy, sadness, confusion, pride, all of it threatened to drown him in a tidal wave of shock. The world was finally set into motion again, but this time it seemed to spin. The world tilted on itself. Everything began to grow darker as the cold wood of the floorboards finally made impact with his head. Oh man, I think I'm blacking out, were the final, sobering thoughts the young shinobi had before the merciful claws of the abyss finally drew him into unconsciousness. Lord Uzumaki, Lord Uzumaki! A voice called out, seemingly from a distance. Easy, Naruto, easy. Tried to take it slow. Sakura, can you get him some water? Another, more familiar voice seemed to have its hand underneath his head. What happened? He murmured as the image seemed to crystallize. Kakashi stood above him, flanked on the other side by the foreign visitor. The man seemed to have a concerned look on his face as he eyed the young boy. His sensei hauled him upwards into a sitting position with a grunt. What happened? You passed out, brat. Tsunade chuckled as she poured herself some more sake. Lord have mercy, if only I was so lucky. So it wasn't a dream? The fifth Hokage cackled sharply like a witch, almost reveling in his hopeless naivety. Kakashi was a bit more sympathetic, the older jonin taking the glass of water Sakura gave him and passing it to his pupil. Naruto gulped down the cold beverage thirstily, feeling as though he had just run a marathon. With a heaving breath, he lowered the glass and tried to take a moment to situate himself. Shell-shocked, he turned towards the visitor. Father? Yep, he smiled. Twins? Yep. Naruto looked at his sensei blankly before turning back to the emissary. Cheyenne? Congratulations. I think he's blacking out again. Hang on there, Naruto. Kakashi smacked the blonde ninja's cheek. Stay awake for me, kid. What did this mean for him? Was he going to have to leave the village? Was he going to need to abandon his life as a ninja? Who would bring back Sasuke? Who would protect the village from her enemies? A whole new emotion began to worm its way into the young boy's heart as the gravity of the situation truly seemed to unfold. Oh, for stand up, kid! Tsunade hauled him to his feet with a single hand and set down her bottle of booze. Now listen up. You're a leaf ninja, and so long as I'm running this village there will be no deadbeats. Believe me, I know what it's like to lose your man and I won't have you inflicting that on some poor girl. Lady Tsunade, don't you think that's a bit forceful? Sakura tried to venture but was quickly silenced by a burning glare from her mentor. And never mind. What am I going to do? Naruto breathed helplessly. What am I going to do? You're going to pack what you need and head out for the land of demons immediately is what you're going to do. Brat, you may be like a grandson to me but don't think that I'm going to let you skip out on your responsibility as a parent. But Sasuke. The village will be taken care of, she said, gentler this time as she laid a hand on her shoulder. You've saved us pain, from the Shikaku, let us handle some problems for once. Not everything needs to be your responsibility, kid, but I lived here forever. I don't know anywhere else, Tsunade smiled, a mix of sad and proud. Part of growing up is getting used to pushing your boundaries. Granted, I would have started a bit slower, but we can hardly take it back now, can we? Brat Naruto, you know you'll always be welcomed here. You're our hero, but right now that girl, Cheyenne, she's on her own. Are you going to let your kids grow up without their father? No was the first word that appeared in his mind. Knee-jerk and instinctive. How many nights had he come home to an empty kitchen? How many nights had he wished someone would just tuck him into bed? Or read him a story? Or even just go to the park and do all the things a child and their parent should do? Could he really force that on two innocent lives? I'll go. I'll go, saying it tasted bitter somehow, as if he were admitting defeat. Another hand came down on his other shoulder. Kakashi, Naruto, you have no idea how happy your parents would be to hear that. The older man smiled, a genuine thing that seemed to make Naruto feel a bit better. You'll set out for the land of demons immediately along with that. What was your name again? Nobuo, Madam Hokage, Nobuo Shiganshina. The man bowed. Right, Nobuo. I want you to take a few of your comrades with you. I think Lee's team is on leave for now. Ironic, Naruto almost wanted to smile. It had been most of their team that had accompanied him the first time. Perhaps that was why Tsunade had recommended them. Better to bring along someone experienced in the area's layout and fauna. And me, ma'am? Sakura raised her hand. I want you to stay here for now. In time, it'll likely be that we need to venture to the land of demons to officiate a marriage ceremony. The Hokage winked at her younger subordinates. In the meantime, you need to continue your training. Kakashi, yes ma'am? I want you to round up Team Guy and get them up to speed. You can accompany them until they reach the land of swamps. After that they should be safe for the rest of the way. Since we stopped the ghost army, that region has been relatively peaceful. At once. With that, the Jonin sensei flickered away. Naruto took a seat against the wall, joined shortly by his pink-haired teammate who leaned her head on his shoulder. The contact was welcome and comforting. Out of all the times he had nearly died, where he had faced that thing living inside his soul, he would have taken any of them over this next journey. Whatever happens, Naruto, Sakura mumbled quietly. You'll always be a part of Team 7 and a Leaf Village, never forget that. He knew that, he had grown up knowing that, it had driven him through some of the toughest fights of his life. But hearing it from someone he had loved for so long, it put a fire in his chest. He was Naruto Uzumaki, son of the 4th Hokage and hero of the Leaf. He could face anything, and this was no different. With a newfound vigor, the blonde ninja stood proud. With a familiar, cocky smile on his face, he turned to Nobuo and gave him a thumbs up. I'll give it my all then, because that's my ninja way. Believe it, is it true? Oh happy day! Rock Lee cried as he pulled Naruto into a bone-crushing hug. I cannot believe it! To think that you would ever have kids. Lee, you're crushing me, Naruto breathed hoarsely. After going to collect Team Guy, it had not taken long for them to arrive at the Hokage's office and get brought up to speed. The 5th Hokage watched with somewhat sadistic amusement as Naruto was brought low by the impressive grip strength of Lee. Might Guy, Team Guy's sensei, stood off to the side, manly tears of joy running down his face. Kakashi, you've one-upped me once again. The bowl-cut Jonin clenched his fist tightly as his long-time and exasperated friend grimaced. How did you do it? How did you get someone who would marry a ninja like Naruto? Hey who? The blonde ninja deflated like an airbag as Lee's hug tripled in strength before he was finally released. No offense, but are we sure this is a good idea, Lady Hokage? Tenten spoke up. Tsunade quirked up an eyebrow at the girl before sighing. We have little other choice. Let alone that Naruto needs to take responsibility for what he's done. Spurning the land of demons might be an unwise decision. The last thing we need right now is anti-Leaf sentiment flittering about. Tenten acknowledged that with a simple nod, but the final member of Team Guy, Niji Hyuga, was not so easily placated. Are we sure it's wise to send a squad of ninjas so far away at such a critical time? I understand that Naruto himself must leave, but why us too? You even said it yourself that the land of demons is a mostly peaceful region now. Insightful one, Tsunade thought to herself. It's only a precaution. With our allies in the sand, and the recent strides we've made in repairing the village, I'm hoping that we can afford to send you all off. Rest assured, you would return immediately after. However, I'm still not sure what you may encounter on the road. The land of demons is a distant region that does not take most of the main trade routes. Opportunistic ninja and bandits alike may be watching the area for easy marks, Lee added. With a shrug, Niji conceded and returned to staring out the window. Sakura fiddled with her hands anxiously, wishing that the Hokage would send her with them. They had already lost Sasuke to Orochimaru. What if Naruto never came back? She didn't want to lose the rest of her original team. Lady Hokage, she finally spoke up. Are you sure that I cannot leave with them? If we're worried about dividing our forces too much, then I can. I'm sorry, Sakura, but you're a valued medical ninja and my pupil. There are things I still need to teach, and your medical expertise will prove invaluable if any more of our people become injured. This is not a permanent arrangement, but rather a temporary show of cooperation to the ruling body of the land of demons. The pink-haired Kunoichi looked downcast, but acquiesced to the words of her superior. Kakashi patted her back and stepped forward. With your permission, Lady Hokage, I think they're ready to set out. Indeed, she nodded. Guy, Kakashi, stay here for a bit. Sakura, you too. As for Team Guy and Naruto, she stepped forward, placing one hand on Tenten's shoulder and the other on Naruto's. With a brief flex of her monstrous strength, she pulled them into a close huddle. Not quite a group hug, but caring nonetheless. Be careful, you four. See yourselves and Nobuo safely back to the land of demons. And Naruto? Yeah, Granny? Tsunade smiled softly. Say hello to Cheyenne. Naruto perked up, a grin breaking out over his face. Sure thing, Granny. This is truly a wondrous moment. Lee cried out, wrapping Naruto in another hug. Wait, Lee Ayak! The blonde shinobi's protests were silenced with the sound of cracking bones. The fifth Hokage watched the assembled ninja and emissary go, already making their way to the main gate. It filled her heart with a mixture of pride, sadness, and worry. If only Jiraiya could have been here for this. She was sure he would have had plenty to say about this whole situation, but wants and what-ifs were rarely a comfort. She had learned that after a lifetime of loss. Maybe it was too sentimental or hasty of her, but she didn't want Naruto to make the same mistakes she did. Better to be alive with a family than dead as the world's strongest ninja. Lady Hokage, not to question your wisdom, but are we sure this is wise? Guy said seriously, his cheerful facade gone now that his pupils had left the room. In regards to the Nine Tails, the Leaf Village is weak right now. I'm not sure how much Naruto has left in him, or if he could afford to save us from another attack like Pain's. And now with these reports of people collecting the Jinchuriki, the village was quickly becoming a prime target. She faced towards the window, back to them both. Kakashi nodded. I agree, but is it still a good idea to have them running around? Within the village, Naruto was still relatively safe. Maybe, I won't deny this is a gamble. The land of demons is isolated, off the beaten path, and it doesn't have much to make it stand out. It's why I wanted to keep this knowledge insular. The two Jonin glanced at each other before turning back to their leader. Tsunade folded her arms and turned back around to face them. From here on out, I want you to keep the nature of this situation a secret. Only top-level Jonin and Umbu are to be allowed full disclosure to this situation. For all intents and purposes, Naruto and Team Guy are on a short mission to the land of Mint in the east. You intend to fake out the enemy? Guy asked. As much as possible. They'll discover eventually, but with Naruto so far away I hold out hope that we may find them before they figure out the ruse. If necessary, we'll set an ambush with the Sand Village's Jinchuriki, Gaara, to capture them. Kakashi hummed to himself. It was a bold move, one that carried a lot of risk. Without Naruto in the village, there was no telling if they would be able to help him in time if he needed it. On the other hand, the land of demons was the last place they would expect to find him. The problems out there were nothing his student couldn't handle on his own, but if they did encounter any resistance, then there were few other teams equipped to handle it than Team Guy. I have to hold out hope that this will work. The boy has lived his entire life having been treated like an outcast. I've read his files, his medical reports, and it doesn't surprise me that he was so small for his age. Malnutrition, pneumonia, and even bronchitis were common illnesses of his. I'm sure the third did what he could have, but Tsunade breathed out a sigh. He deserves to have a family of his own. On that, the two Jonin agreed. The team of shinobi landed just outside the gate where Izumo and Kotetsu were checking passports for those wishing to enter the village. Since Pain's attack, the main gate had been partially rebuilt. It wasn't the towering symbol of might that the original had been, but it functioned and it was sturdy. Heading out on a mission, guys? Izumo waved. What's it this time? Just a short capture and retrieval mission, Niji answered briskly. I see. Well, good luck. We've had a lot of traders coming through these days. Apparently some big storm is getting kicked up way in the north. Sounds like a whole lot of trouble to me. Trouble? Naruto asked. Folk are tight-lipped about it. Seems like some new warlord is doing his thing again. I expect this to take care of itself in a matter of months. Izumo waved his hand flippantly. What do you mean by, oh, hey guys? A familiar voice called out to them. Turning around, Naruto's stomach dropped as Iruka walked towards them. The older man had a bright smile on his face, a small paper bag clutched in his other hand. Niji glanced between them before stepping away, deciding this was a battle for Naruto to fight on his own. Another mission? He asked Naruto. Why yeah, something like that. Naruto had never been comfortable lying to the man. Since the beginning Iruka had watched out for him. Had wanted to see him at his best. In all his life, there were very few people who he could say had wanted that for him before he became the village hero. It didn't feel right to withhold things from him, especially not something like this. Lady Tsunade's running you guys ragged, huh? Well, I guess I'm pretty busy too these days, he laughed and scratched his cheek. Even with half the building leveled, classes don't stop. Education waits for no shinobi. Alright. Iruka cocked his head to the side. Are you alright, Naruto? You look a bit sweaty? Don't tell me you drank more expired milk. Naruto's neck burned at the reminder. And no way. It's not that, geez, he huffed. Whoa, talk about touchy. Let me guess, Sakura cleaned your clock again, HM? The older man leaned in with a cheeky grin. How am I going to tell him? When am I going to tell him? Naruto internally panicked. They were about to leave for who knows how long. What, was he just going to drop a truth bomb on his teacher and run away? Iruka's heart wasn't going to be able to handle that. He was old. Oi, did you just call me old? Iruka's eyebrow twitched angrily. Oh look, it's not that. I just, look, it's complicated. That blush on his neck had spread to his cheeks and head. Forget Sakura. Iruka would clean his clock if he found out he had gotten some girl in another country pregnant. It would be a beating an order of magnitude bigger than anything he had gotten from his teammate. Whoa, hey, Naruto, are you alright? Do you need to talk about it? Iruka stepped forward and Naruto instinctively moved back. The blonde shinobi sucked in a breath and steeled his nerves. I can't tell you right now, so just wait. The shout echoed across the courtyard, stunning Iruka and causing Team Guy to cringe. Heart hammering in his chest, Naruto turned on his heel and ran out of the gate and into the woods surrounding Konoha. Team Guy was forced to sprint to keep up with him, leaving the shocked Chunin teacher standing alone. Was it something I said? Not your finest exit, Naruto, Tenten giggled. I thought steam was going to come out of your head for a moment. Whatever, he grumbled embarrassedly. It is okay, Naruto. Everyone gets embarrassed about these sorts of things. Lee gave him a motivational thumbs up. Niji cut into the argument before it could get started again. We've been making good time for the past few hours. At this rate, we'll reach the land of demons within the next few days. Indeed, Nobuo huffed, sweat dripping down his face. The man had been near silent since they had left the village, only focused on getting back to his country. However, he was no ninja and probably hadn't pushed himself this hard in his life. Naruto slowed down before finally stopping on a tree branch. We can pause here for a few minutes so you can catch your breath, Nobuo. Please, do not mind me. Despite his words, the man accepted the break gratefully and sat down. Forgive me, I was chosen due to my athleticism, but this is more than I'm used to. That reminds me, you didn't tell us what you do in the land of demons, Nobuo, Tenten said to the man. Ah, yes. I'm one of the royal guards, chosen from my village due to my prowess and skill. I can't compete with ninja like you all though. However, since the ghost army arose and many of our warriors were wiped out in the attempt on Lady Cheyenne's life, I have trained extensively to pick up the slack. Our country is the weakest it has ever been in recent times. Naruto could remember that fateful night with crystal clarity. The battle had been fierce, decisive, and ruthless. Yomi's little henchman had cut a bloody swathe through Cheyenne's guards like they were nothing. It was a sad fact of life in this world, that so many were helpless before a trained shinobi, but they were all long dead by now. A crew of madmen who had flown too close to the sun. Yomi was gone and so was his ilk. Morio was sealed. It was over. It was fitting that Lee and Niji had accompanied Naruto on this mission, as they had during their first visit to the land of demons. Naruto jumped down to Nobuo and glanced back at the way they came. No followers, and he sensed no eavesdroppers either. So, how are things in the land of demons? How is Cheyenne? He asked, curiosity finally forcing him to articulate the questions. Despite our weakness, the region's stability and isolated geography has served to aid us. There are very few who would or could attack us full sail, and even less reason to do so. As for Lady Cheyenne, her constitution was so frail we thought for sure she would not survive childbirth. It was a very blessed day when the news arrived that she and your sons were in optimal condition. Naruto's heart skipped a beat. She had almost died. Nobuo saw the look on Naruto's face and continued. Before I left, she was in a joyous mood, fawning over her twin sons. She insisted on waiting for you to arrive before naming them, as she didn't want to leave you out of such a prestigious moment. I see. Naruto cleared his throat. And her foresight? Does she still receive visions of the future? Indeed, Lord Uzumaki. Although in recent years it has, thankfully, gotten easier for her. As of late, she's witnessed events completely unrelated to the demise of any of her attendants. That piqued his curiosity. It changed? We do not know how or why, but Lady Cheyenne requested that we keep it quiet. At least to the people of the land. If anyone were to find out, it could make her and our country a target. Naruto nodded, pulling out a small flask of water. Offering it to the man, he watched as the young man guzzled it thankfully. Niji dropped down next to them, his usual look of ambivalent stoicism still etched into his face. We'll continue up ahead and make camp near a valley off the northwestern road. It has fresh water streams so we can replenish, he said to them both. From there, it will be another day or so until we arrive at the land of demons' capital. All right, let's get moving. Naruto cheered, giving his team leader a cocky grin. We'll be there faster than greased lightning, believe it, Niji sighed. As always, your energy remains unblemished. Nobuo, are you ready and waiting to go, sir? With their group rested, they took off once more. The upside to the local geography was that it was relatively tame in terms of weather and layout. Naruto had always thought the locale was something to admire in and of itself. The last time he was here, he had to contend with a world-conquering army of stone soldiers which dampened the mood considerably. But now, though, he was given a chance to truly admire the lay of the land. Large oak trees pierce up from the ground, providing numerous perches to jump along above the craggy, moss-covered ground below. The sky was a perfect shade of blue, free of any clouds, and the wind was mild to boot. It was the perfect day to just sit back and enjoy oneself. I wonder if she's enjoying herself right now, Naruto thought quietly. He wondered if she were reading stories to her sons, telling them of their father's return. Or maybe she was sitting out on her balcony, taking in the fresh air after such a draining ordeal. Such an odd thing to think of, at the moment. Yet, he couldn't seem to tear his mind away from her. When they had become intimate, it hadn't been something deep. Passionate, yes, but long-lived? Soulful? He wasn't sure. Cheyenne was a beautiful woman, of course, and he would admit to having bragged about his conquest more than once. But he couldn't think like that anymore, could he? She wasn't just some notch on his belt, or some story he could share with his buddies. This was serious. He had kids now, kids he needed to raise and take care of. Naruto kicked off another branch and threw himself higher, nearly to the tops of the trees. It provided a brief look at the mountains ahead. He could almost imagine the capital city nestled between the great stone cliffs. Naruto, you have been quiet for a while, Lee observed, coming up beside him. I'm sure you must be anxious, but do not worry. You hold the will of fire and have defeated many powerful enemies. I have faith that you will succeed. Bushy brows' enthusiasm helped bolster his confidence. Naruto smiled again and shook his head. Just thinking. I'm not sure how much I really know about Cheyenne, you know? Well, we didn't have much time to speak on personal terms in the heat of the moment. Right. I have to wonder, is she really happy with a guy like me? I mean, when we had sex I left the day after. I can't even remember if we spoke. Shame flickered like a dim match in his chest. Lee hummed sagely. I can understand where you're coming from, but think of this. If she did not want to see you again, then why go through the trouble of bringing you back here? Maybe she didn't want to raise her kids on her own. Geez, you really are a blockhead, Tenten huffed from below. What's the point of admitting defeat before we even get there? You're just being your own worst enemy. Tenten is right, focus on our journey. This land may be peaceful, but we cannot assume that our enemies will not follow us, Niji reminded them. That's another thing, Naruto mused. What about Sasuke? What about the Akatsuki? They were still out there, hunting Jinchuriki. They could go after Gaara, or Octopops. Or worse, they could come after him and his new family. Was it really wise to risk putting his children in the line of fire? Grandma Tsunade has to have a plan. I know she does, the reassurance felt weak. A day to go before he met his children. They made it another few miles before they stopped to make camp for the night. Nobuo needed rest, and Naruto wanted more time to think. What was he going to say? What should he say? After nearly a year apart, he didn't think they had a whole lot to speak on. Besides the obvious, of course. Remember what Tenten said, let's not lose this battle before we fight it. Naruto sighed to himself as he sat upon a rock. A campfire crackled somewhere behind him, the soft warmth licking at his back as he faced out towards the forest. He and Nobuo had offered to take the first shift watching the camp. With very little chance of getting attacked, he felt as though he could let his guard down a bit. Lord Uzumaki, Nobuo came over, a pair of cups of hot water clasped in his hands. Here, you should keep warm. Thank you, Nobuo. The guardsman sat down next to the blonde ninja and took a small sip. With a satisfied sigh, the man loosened up and gazed out over the scenery. Naruto still found him to be an enigma. He hadn't spoken much, nor had he given many details about his life. If he had been around the last time he and his team had traveled to Cheyenne's kingdom, he didn't remember. I sense you are worried, Lord Uzumaki. Naruto paused mid-sip before putting down the cup. You can just call me Naruto, you know. Okay, Lord Naruto, Nobuo nodded. But you didn't answer my question. Geez, talk about uptight. Naruto smiled a bit awkwardly. Why yeah? I mean, how can I be? I don't know the first thing about being a father. A sentiment shared across all expecting dads, I believe. Luckily, it's a position you grow into, Nobuo chuckled softly. I guess, but I dunno. I just can't imagine myself being that kind of guy, you know? Being responsible, raising kids. I never even knew my dad. How can I possibly be one myself? The man seemed to consider that for a moment, periodically sipping his drink. With the hot water and the fire, the dim chill of the breeze seemed a distant thing. Stars shone brightly overhead, accented by the occasional flicker flash of what might have been a comet. It was an image that one didn't truly see in the Leaf Village. All the lights tended to blot out most of the stars. Are you worried you might fail? That you might not be good enough? It was Naruto's turn to think. How could he even put it into words? Setting aside the complex mix of emotions he had going on inside him, the terror of failing paralyzed him most of all. He barely even knew what it meant to fail in this context. It's more like I worry that I'll mess up badly. That I'll mess them up, disappoint them, make them worse. I don't want it to be where having no father was better than what I gave them. Naruto's hand clutched around the cup tightly. I couldn't live with myself if that happened. I grew up alone, with no parents, and that was one of the worst things I ever experienced. But maybe not as bad as having bad parents? Nobuo guessed. The young man nodded, head downcast. The guardsman breathed in deeply before releasing it. I don't imagine there's a single person in this world who hasn't made a mistake, and I'd say that goes for parenting as well. You're not alone, you'll have Lady Cheyenne, you'll have me, you'll have all of us. Parenthood can be a trying ordeal, but it is, in my opinion, the most rewarding challenge one can undertake. But what if this, what if that? You can ask yourself 100,000 hypotheticals. What if none of them come true? He countered. His words gave Naruto pause. His mind rang back to Tenten's words. His own insecurities were poisoning his mind with doubt. If he only focused on what could go wrong, he would fail. He needed to get over it. No way out but through. Naruto breathed deeply. I get it. If that's how it is, then you can count on me. Believe it, Nobuo smiled. That is very good to hear, Lord Naruto. Time ticked by, the stars rolled overhead, and the fire began to die down. There was a peaceful, comfortable silence between the two as they finished their drinks. The whole affair was a curious case of déjà vu for Naruto, who remembered being in a situation similar to this many months ago. You know, this sort of reminds me of when Teruho and I spoke about Cheyenne, Naruto said absently. Nobuo paused. Does it? What did you two talk about? Yeah. He and I spoke about Cheyenne's past, her gift. I remember thinking she was a lot like me, despite how insufferable she was being. He apologized on her behalf, and tried to get me to see things from her perspective. That sounds a lot like Teruho. He was quite the loyal guard to Her Majesty. Did you know him? Nobuo's lips thinned for a moment, as if he were thinking on how to respond. After a moment, he set down his cup and answered. He was my cousin. While you all went out to stop Morio's threat, I stayed behind to keep things running and to keep the city safe. I received news of his death after the destruction of the Ghost Army. I see Naruto's expression was melancholy. He was a really great guy, you know. Right up until the end. Not an ounce of fear in him. I imagine so. He was a most loyal guardsman. He has a statue in his honor in the palace courtyard. By Lady Cheyenne's orders, in fact. Naruto chuckled softly. Yeah, I can believe that. Teruho had been a good man when Naruto had known him. Brave and driven, even when so far out of his depth that he was, in honesty, of little help. No ninjutsu, no ninja training, merely a sword and his will. And in the end he gave up his life to save the world. If there was anyone deserving of a statue, it was going to be him. To Teruho, Naruto raised his now empty cup. In his absence, I'll protect Cheyenne. Believe it, Nobuo smiled. Believe it, quiet. Tenten called from her sleeping bag. What a gorgeous morning. Lee crowed, doing his stretches. Truly we've been blessed with such great weather. Geez Lee, do you need to already be yelling? Tenten yawned. Niji walked over to the rest of them. Did you sleep well, Nobuo? Yes, Lord Hyuga. Just give me the word when you're ready to head out. The Jonin nodded and examined the path laid before them. With his Byakugan he could trace the shortest route to reach the land of demons' capital city, Ashiya. Luckily, as one grew closer to the main city and its surrounding towns, the roads got easier to traverse. Being such an insular country, what little trade was done along the main trade route throughout the whole region. Them taking an alternate route had put them out of the way of such things. It made getting there a bit slower but, also, drastically reduced the chances of being attacked by anyone. His reconnaissance done, Niji turned back to his team. I'd say with the pace we've currently been making, we'll arrive in Ashiya by sunset. Let's get moving. Right. They cried out. Niji's analysis proved to be accurate once again. By the time the sun had been reduced to a mellow orange blob in the sky, the city was in sight. The painted hues of purple and orange overhead cast the place in a surreal light, as if they were looking at a masterfully constructed painting. Naruto thought it almost looked ephemeral, like if he got too close it may disappear like a mirage. Not too much longer, Tenten sighed, wiping her forehead. And not a moment too soon. Come now, Tenten, you're young, you should have more energy. Lee spoke loudly. No offense, Bushibrow, but the only person with energy and eyebrows like you is Guy-sensei. Do not insult Guy-sensei's eyebrows. Enough, both of you, Niji ordered them before Lee could finish putting Naruto in a headlock. We should make it there before nightfall to avoid causing any confusion. Who died and made you prince? Naruto began before he was cut off by Tenten pinching his cheek. Get that rudeness out of your system now, Naruto. Ow, geez, fine, I get it. I get it. She finally let go with an exasperated sigh. Niji glanced back at the routine and sighed mournfully. How you ever reproduced. It wasn't another 40 minutes until they reached the imposing front gates of the city. Smaller than the Leaf villages, but impressive nonetheless. The red-painted doors were engraved and detailed with demons and murals of the heroes who beat them back. Naruto saw that the embellishment extended to the arches overhead and even to the walls surrounding the city. This is known as the Iron Ring. You probably didn't get to see it last time you were here. It is our greatest cultural and artistic piece anywhere in the land of demons, Nobuo explained. It was made long ago as protection against evil spirits and demons. We've added to it as time goes on. I believe you all even have your own spot on it, somewhere. Talk about a grandiose introduction, Tenten mumbled as Lee and Naruto nodded. Halt, state your business. A guard at the top of the wall called out. Traitors? Not so. I am Nobuo Shiganshina of the Royal Guard. He flashed some kind of large metal token. I bring with me Lord Uzumaki as well as 3 honorable ninja from the Leaf Village. Captain Shiganshina. Apologies, sir. I did not recognize you from up here. We've been eagerly awaiting you and our lord's return. Open the gate, the guard called. The doors swung open, revealing the city within. Rolling sprawls of streets and vendors curled out deeper into the city. Larger constructs of wood occasionally interspersed the squat, almost historical buildings, towering over them in their might. The first word that occurred to Naruto was rustic. The city was by no means backwards or out of date, but there was a certain sense of vintageness to it. Homes that were classically constructed and only later on modified to have more modern conveniences in them, large buildings comprised mostly of wood, and clothing that had been more popular 20 or 30 years ago than today. It was a small shock to take in all at once, but Nobuo gave the group no time to adjust. Quickly, we must get to the palace to inform Lady Cheyenne of your arrival, the man said excitedly, brushing past them. The White Lily Palace is the seat of our government, and the main living quarters of Lady Cheyenne, and soon enough, you, Lord Uzumaki. Fancy name, Naruto murmured. Indeed, named so after the impressive garden Lady Cheyenne's mother cultivated in her lifetime. Lady Cheyenne herself has taken to tending and even expanding it to include medicinal herbs and other useful plants. Geez, I'm beginning to feel more like a tourist than an honored guest. Naruto scratched the back of his head awkwardly. This place is interesting. Are these buildings authentic? Niji asked as they passed through the streets. Indeed, sir. The land of demons still practices many construction techniques passed down through the generations, although we have since incorporated better materials and safety standards, not to mention things such as plumbing, heating, and cooling. Naruto hummed to himself. It wasn't always a guaranteed thing to have those outside of a major city. Heck, there were plenty of villages in the land of fire without those modern conveniences. Ashiya may have been a capital city, but the land of demons was also something of a remote nation. I'm sure you must have a robust cultural heritage here then. Oh yes. I'll give you all a tour after we get things sorted out. We of the land of demons take pride in our history and have extensive documentation dating back over 1,000 years. Since before the time of your Leaf Village, in fact, Lee whistled, and Naruto felt inclined to agree. 1,000 years was, well, 1,000 years. That far predated the Leaf Village and most of what Naruto knew to be his country's major history. Had the land of demons been around for that long? The walk to the White Lily Palace wasn't long by any stretch, but it certainly felt like a distance when everyone seemed to turn and stare at them as they passed. Niji, Lee, and Tenten noticed it as well, giving each other confused and slightly tense glances. Nobuo picked up on the hesitation and was quick to explain. Yes, following your triumph over Morio, Lady Cheyenne wished to spread your heroism throughout the land. I'd say everyone in this city must know your faces. Following Lady Cheyenne's successful delivery, many people were ecstatic waiting for your return in particular, Lord Uzumaki. Oh, how wonderful, Naruto stammered. Great, it's not like I have enough pressure to deal with already, Naruto bemoaned in his head. He paused as he bumped into something in his way. Looking down, a young boy with absolute awe in his eyes gazed up at him. You're him. You're really him. I knew you'd come back. You're the hero who defeated Morio and the Ghost Army. The boy shouted excitedly. Well, I mean, I didn't do it alone, but, see. You are him. Whoa, hey kid, I'm just. Mom, check it out. The boy pointed as an older woman came up to him. It's the hero who defeated the demons and saved the world. Yes it is, but he's busy right now. She scooped up the young boy in his arms. We don't want to stop him, do we? No way. Hey, Mr. Hero, before you go do cool hero stuff, can you tell me how I can be a hero? The boy's blind enthusiasm was nearly enough to give Naruto heartburn. A quick glance back at his allies showed them either conspicuously looking away or stifling their giggles. Traitors, he thought to himself before glancing back at the kid and his mother. The woman offered him a sympathetic smile, and Naruto was compelled to say something. I'll go to bed early, train hard, and eat your veggies, kid. He ruffled the young boy's hair. Then you'll grow up to be even stronger than me. Believe it. Whoa. Cool. Mom, can we have miso soup tonight? Sure thing, hun. The woman winked at the blonde ninja as she walked away. See, Naruto, I knew you had those paternal instincts all along. Lee cried, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. Oh man, what did I get myself into? Now presenting, Lord Uzumaki and the shinobi of the Leaf Village. The court steward splayed an arm towards them all. They received polite nods from the various courtesans that dotted around the throne room. It was a splendid thing of white stone and tapestries depicting even more history. Naruto wondered if it had a more special meaning than the stories that had been painted on the wall outside. At the end of the room, in front of a trio of long glass windows, sat the immaculate white lily throne itself. Upon sat none other than Lady Cheyenne, her priestess vestments perfectly arranged. With the rays of light coming in behind her, she seemed as angelic as the city had seemed when they had approached. Thank you, steward, she spoke regally, a slight smile on her lips. Leave us, please. The man bowed deeply as he and the court-goers quickly vacated the room. It left them and Nobuo to approach the throne alone. Cheyenne didn't seem much different than when they had last met, but, Naruto reasoned, either did he. I'm glad to hear you all came back without issue. Truth be told, I was a little worried about if something would go wrong. She stood and descended the stairs in front of her throne. I take it everything went well, Nobuo? The man knelt. Yes, Lady Cheyenne. The journey was free of any troubles, thankfully. She stopped just short of him and smiled. Good to hear. As of late, it seems the only thing I do is worry about my subjects and their affairs. The young woman turned to face the Leaf Ninja, taking in their faces and no doubt recollecting their names. When she finally got to Tenten, she paused. Oh, my apologies, I'm afraid I don't remember you. Tenten at your service, Lady Cheyenne. I am the original third member of Team Guy, that is, the teammate to Niji and Lee, she gestured towards them. During the Ghost Army incident I was assigned to setting up traps to try and halt Morio's advance. I see. Thank you. As for you, Naruto, she stepped closer. Naruto himself froze. He wasn't sure whether he should speak or hug her. What did one possibly say to the mother of their children after being absent for the entire pregnancy? Whatever response he thought up felt stilted or simply too awkward. Cheyenne, I miss you. She pulled him into a tight, warm hug. At that moment, all the words in his head lay forgotten. His doubts, his insecurities, for the moment they simply washed away. There was no anger in her voice, no sadness, merely relief and joy that he had returned. It occurred to him that she had dealt with the emotions he had felt for far longer, and thus had had more time to process them. He returned the hug, relaxing. Me too. Oh Niji, it is beautiful, is it not? Lee sniffed tearfully, slightly ruining the mood. Niji rolled his eyes but said nothing. It was Cheyenne who finally broke the hug, dusting off Naruto and giving him a welcoming smile. You all must be tired. We have rooms set up for you all, and we should be eating in not too long. Please let me show you to your rooms. Lady Cheyenne, are you sure you should be walking around? We don't want to strain you, Niji asked. Shoot, I should have asked that. Naruto grimaced to himself. Oh come on, I was pregnant, not deathly ill, she giggled. Besides, if I can lead a country while expecting, I think I can show my guests some hospitality. She led them through the palace, which itself was an extensive building. Every part of it was created with care, worked on by master craftsmen and embellished with the finest details. The more Naruto looked, the more things began to stand out. The ceilings overhead were engraved with scrawlings patterns, as were the walls. Even the columns holding up the ceiling in rooms seemed to have images of honorable heroes fighting back against demons. It was breathtaking to explore, and was nearly worth the trip itself. Naruto wondered if he could ask Cheyenne about it later. Even in its heyday, Konoha hadn't had this much care put into its buildings. Not even the Hokage's tower. Here is where you all may sleep. I've made it so you three may each have your own rooms. The baths are just down the hallway, you can miss them. Cheyenne pointed them out. Thank you, Lady Cheyenne, Lee said, setting his bag down in his own room. Hey Cheyenne, what about my room? Naruto asked. HM? She looked to him before realizing what he said. She giggled again into her hand. Naruto, you'll be sleeping in my room. Naruto choked. Lee choked. He was pretty sure somewhere in the leaf, Grandma Tsunade was choking. Tenten looked almost scandalized, or awed at Cheyenne's straightforward confidence. The priestess, for her part, didn't even seem to be embarrassed by her words. Whoa, hang on, time out. What the heck do you mean we'll be sleeping in the same room? Naruto cried in shock. She cocked her head to the side, confused. What do you mean, Naruto? It isn't like there's a whole lot of boundaries between us. She had an excellent point. After having children with someone, sleeping in the same room seemed to be pretty low-key in comparison. Naruto's jaw worked open and closed before he finally shut his mouth and nodded woodenly. Was it really so strange? Nice job, Lady Cheyenne. Tenten gave the woman a thumbs up. Besides, after the marriage ceremony we'll be sleeping together anyway, so, it shouldn't matter. For the first time that afternoon, Cheyenne seemed to blush. Naruto swayed on his heels, only steadied by Lee. Lady Cheyenne, perhaps you should not deal such haymakers to your fiancé in such short succession. Naruto is not equipped to deal with such things. Mentally, I mean. Not helping, Lee. Cheyenne laughed. I guess not. Well, I'm glad you all didn't change a bit. At least I know what to expect. Lady Cheyenne, an older woman in a servant's uniform, stepped closer. I am very sorry to bother you, but your sons will just not lay down. Being fussy again? Cheyenne guessed. Apologies, once again. I swear those boys never stop to breathe. Lady Cheyenne merely patted the woman's shoulder and turned to, presumably, deal with them. She stopped, however, and turned. Naruto, do you want to meet your children? Naruto's heartbeat began to pick up, and he nodded sharply. This was it, he was going to meet his children. He felt a pair of hands come down on his shoulders and turned to see Lee and Tenten there, toothy grins and all. Behind them, Niji gave him a bit of a sterner look as if he expected the blonde ninja to blow it off. The caretaker stayed behind to get his friend settled, and both he and Cheyenne left to go see the children. As they walked in silence, Naruto began to hear something in the distance. Crying, and it was growing louder as they approached. They both get a bit fussy this time of day. I think it's because I usually spend a lot of time in the court, and don't get to see them. She seemed serene, peaceful. The perfect image of a mother. Even the tone with which she spoke about them seemed to radiate warmth and care. I hope they like me, Naruto said, mostly to himself. Come now. You are their father. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Be strong, they're not that intimidating. The two young parents came upon a door which Cheyenne opened. The crying seemed to hesitate for a second before it picked up again. Naruto stepped in behind her, hands clutching nervously at the edges of his jacket. Inside the room was painted a bright sky blue, the ceiling painted to have little fluffy white clouds on it. A pair of cribs were in the center of the room, painted orange and green. Cheyenne approached them, and instantly the crying calmed down. She got closer and stuck her hands into each one. "Hello there, cuties. I brought someone for you." Naruto took that as his cue and stepped forward. He peered into the cribs, and gazed upon his sons for the first time. The one in the green crib resembled him more than his mother, with the faintest outlines of whisker marks on his face and a head of reddish blonde hair. His twin in the orange crib squinted at his father through pale blue eyes, a small bit of pale blonde hair to match it. Naruto wasn't sure if he inherited that from his mother, or if his hair had simply not yet darkened. "Cute, aren't they? Say hi to your daddy," Cheyenne smiled. Hello. Naruto was almost at a loss for words. They were beautiful in a way that put every piece of art he'd seen thus far to shame. Breathtaking in a way the scenery here couldn't compare to. He reached his hand into the red-headed one's crib and nearly flinched back as his son grabbed at his finger. With weak baby strength he pulled the blonde father's finger up and down in some mock expression of a handshake. Naruto felt weak at the knees. Yeah, that one picked up on handshakes pretty early. Methinks he'll be a really fox when he grows up. Naruto smiled. Just like his daddy. Cheyenne snorted in a way that was either priestly or ladylike, but it sounded natural. Amused. What had possibly been worried about? "Do they have names?" he asked as he glanced over at his other son who regarded him with a confused squint. He tickled the baby's stomach and finally elicited some laughter from the infant who slapped at his hands in enjoyment. Cheyenne paused before answering. "No, I wanted you to be there. I insisted on it, actually, despite my advisor's words. It felt too important to do without you." "No names? What could he possibly name them? Ichiraku and Ramen? No way. Grandma Tsunade would punch his head off his shoulders for that. Sasuke and Kakashi? No, that felt kinda creepy. Besides, he didn't want to be thinking of his sensei every time he addressed his son. "Do you have any ideas?" he asked her, and was surprised when he saw that she was actually blushing a little. "I mean, I did have one in mind." "Go ahead, I want to hear it," he said, still fencing his red-headed son with his fingers, making the baby giggle in delight. "Turaho." Naruto thought about it. He looked down at his blonde son, and could see the intelligence behind those eyes. The determination. He would undoubtedly grow up to have the same willpower as Turaho had. "Yeah, Turaho, I like that," Naruto smiled. "Yes. I knew you'd love it." She pulled him into a hug with a bright smile on her face. "We just need a name for his brother." "A name for his brother? Geez, I dunno. What's a good boy name?" "Well, my mother always told me it was less about the name and more about the meaning," she said, her voice slightly muffled due to being pressed into his shoulder. "It can be anything, so long as it makes sense and has meaning." A good male name with meaning to him? He thought of his friends, of the people he'd met over the years, good and bad. He thought of all the names he could think of, going over them time and time again. Eventually, he realized the solution that had been right in front of him. He looked into the crib of his red-headed son and, gently, picked him up into his arms. The boy cooed and reached up at his father, clearly wanting to play again. Humored, Naruto thought the boy had a bit of a big head. Just going off that personality of his, he'd be a bigger troublemaker than Naruto was back in his day. Yes, only one name made sense. The name of someone who he owed everything to. How about Irika? That night, Naruto did not get much sleep, and not in the way he may have hoped. Cheyenne's bed was befitting that of a queen. It was a massive expanse of silk sheets and pillows which gave Naruto more than enough room so that he didn't need to be right up against her. However, it seems his fiancée-to-be had different plans. Wherever he moved to, she inevitably found her way there. 5 different times he tried to put some space between them, only for her to eventually inch closer to the point where she was basically spooning him. Naruto just couldn't seem to relax. It was just too awkward. One would think that, of all things, sleeping together wouldn't be so bad, but it just was for some reason. Then, of course, there was the other complicating factor. A wail pierced the dead silent night, shrill and keening. In an instant, Naruto was up and at attention. Was it an intruder? An attack? Naruto made a sign with his hands and instantly nearly a dozen clones occupied the room. He'd gotten stronger since last he was here, and no one was going to lay a hand on Cheyenne while he was here. They're awake, she moaned in her bed. Naruto, can you please go put them back to sleep? For a moment, he wasn't sure what she was talking about. However, as he paid closer attention, the wailing was not the dying screams of a guard or maid, but rather just the crying of a baby. His son. Naruto relaxed and dismissed his clones, going to check on them. Any distraction was welcome compared to the weirdly awkward sleeping arrangement he had going on. As he arrived in the nursery, he realized that it was Irika who was making the ruckus. The red-headed tyke was upset about something, obviously, but what? He reached into the crib and picked up the fussy infant, holding him close. What was he supposed to do now? He tried to think about everything he had read over the years. Weren't you supposed to walk around while holding them or something? Naruto tried his best to settle Iruka down, cooing softly to the child as he paced back and forth. His brother, Teruho, was still sound asleep somehow. "Geez kid, you got a lot of energy in you, you know that?" Naruto whispered as he decided to sit down and try to rock the child back to sleep. Another 30 minutes later and Iruka had still not gone back to sleep. Did he wake up Cheyenne to ask her what to do? He felt incredibly out of his element here. A floorboard creaked outside the nursery and instantly Naruto was on guard again. The door slid open slowly to reveal Tenten, and Naruto forced himself to relax again. Why was he so jumpy? "I guessed I would find you here," she said with a slight smile. "No offense, but I severely doubted you knew how to comfort a crying child. Help. Please, relax here, let me see him." Tenten scooped up Iruka and brought her into her arms. "Believe it or not, but I used to babysit for my little cousin when I was young. I like to think I was pretty good at it." Naruto was thankful for the help. "I tried everything I could think of. I have no idea what's up with him." "Well, it isn't his diaper." When was he last fed?" I think before we went to bed, so maybe 4 or 5 hours ago. He might be hungry." "You hungry, buddy?" Iruka sucked on his fist and waved his arms. "Yup, hungry. Hand me that bottle over there." Naruto did so, and soon his son was happily drinking the formula. He watched as the child's expression began to calm down, and he relaxed. When he was done, Tenten handed the bottle back and rocked the child a bit more. Iruka's eyes fluttered open and shut a few times before he finally seemed to go to sleep. "Babies have small stomachs, so they tend to get hungry a bit more," Tenten whispered as she set Iruka down. "When they wake up at night, it can be because of a few things. They're hungry, they're too hot or cold, their diaper needs changing, so on and so forth." Naruto was impressed by her knowledge. "That's amazing, Tenten. You're like some kind of genius when it comes to this stuff." "Not really, it's something you learn as you go. Poor Cheyenne has probably been so tired as of late that she didn't realize you would have no idea how to handle it." The two stepped out of the nursery to give the babies some peace and quiet. The palace was quiet. Only the faint moonlight slicing through the windows provided some illumination to the hallway. After that whole ordeal, Naruto finally felt tired enough to go to bed. He said his goodbyes to Tenten and returned to Cheyenne, who was sound asleep. Naruto tucked himself into bed right as his other son began to cry. The new father dragged a hand down his face. "It's going to be a long night," he thought to himself morosely. "You look terrible, my friend," Lee observed unhelpfully. Naruto felt terrible. If it wasn't Teruho, it was Iruka, and between the two and his reservations with sleeping with Cheyenne, he had gotten maybe 2 or 3 hours of rest. He felt worse than he had in a long time. He had to get on top of this fatherhood thing before it ended up killing his sleep schedule. Cheyenne stretched as she exited her room, dressed in something less ceremonial. "That was the best night's sleep I've had in months." "Yeah, at my expense," Naruto muttered to himself. Despite not hearing him, Cheyenne did see the state he was in and chuckled a bit guiltily. "Sorry about that, I guess I shouldn't have dropped you right into the thick of it. My bad. I don't know how you survived for so long. I can't imagine doing this for a week, let alone for months. You get used to it, and I suspect you'll adjust better than I did. Coming back down from pregnancy only to have to do all the parenting myself was crazy." Naruto suddenly felt a sharp stab of guilt in his chest. She didn't sound angry or accusatory, but that didn't change how he felt. He glanced back at his comrades who seemed to be regarding him with a mix of pity and indignation. As if he didn't have enough to deal with already. He placed a hand on Cheyenne's shoulder and brought her closer. "Don't worry, now that I'm here you have nothing to worry about, believe it." The young woman blushed, turning away so he didn't see. It was that sort of thing that had made her like him so much in the first place, that idiot. Who actually said those sorts of things when they weren't acting in a movie? Even so, she leaned into the one-armed hug and enjoyed her fiancé's warmth. It had been a long 9 months, after all, and she had missed him. "Why don't you have some of your servants take off the load?" Niji offered. "Never!" she suddenly hissed, lording over the 3 ninja with a menacing aura. "The only people who will raise my babies are me and Naruto." The sudden bloodlust and pressure forced the shinobi back, who buckled underneath her frightful glare. Even Naruto felt a shiver crawl up his spine at her sudden ferocity. Maybe that was the maternal instinct he had heard about. "All right, of course. I get you," Tenten smiled, a bead of sweat rolling down the side of her head. "Totally get it." In an instant, Cheyenne was back to normal, smiling brightly with her hands clasped in front of her. "I knew you would. Oh, I don't have much to do today, so if you all wanted a tour of Uchiha's sights, I'd be more than happy to take you." That intrigued Naruto. The sights coming into the city had certainly piqued his interest, but at the time he had more pressing concerns. Besides, this wasn't like a normal mission where there was something to accomplish. In a sense, the mission was already done. They had gotten to the land of demons successfully, and he had met his kids. Mission accomplished. "Well, we probably should be getting back to the Leaf Village," Niji began, only to be cut off by Tenten. "Oh come on Niji," she pleaded. "It isn't like there's anything to do back in Konoha. We can afford to stay a bit longer." Lee gave an enthusiastic thumbs up. I agree, seeing the sights of Ashiya would be a welcome reward for our travels. Niji, outgunned and outmanned, was forced to concede. Cheyenne smiled brightly and clapped her hands with joy. It had been so long since she entertained guests. The stuffy courtesans and nobles of the surrounding area were always so uptight. Ninja, on the other hand, were so lively and full of energy. Excellent, you won't regret it, I promise. I would feel terrible if you came all this way only to leave before you could enjoy our country. The four ninja were led to a small banquet where they ate, and Cheyenne handled some minor clerical work. Curious, Naruto listened and watched her work. It didn't look especially dire or high energy, but there was a professionalism and grace to which she handled it that interested him. He hadn't been able to think of her as anything but the young girl who had helped him save the world, but at the end of the day she was in charge of a country. It would be strange if she didn't know what she was doing. By the time she had finished signing her forms and giving orders to some of her attendants, Naruto had eaten and was feeling a bit more lively. Nothing like a hearty breakfast to make up for a lack of sleep, or so Jiraiya had said at some point. Probably. Geez, it's like it never ends around here, Cheyenne stretched. What were all those forms and stuff about anyway? Naruto asked. I only ever saw Grandma Tsunade do that much paperwork. She glanced at him. Usually just small stuff. Signing off on public works projects, making sure tax rates are fair, checking off on various small affairs. A lot of it gets caught by the clerical workers in the palace, but some of it needs my say-so. It must be hard being a leader while so young, Niji said. It can be at times. Mostly it's just boring. As you've no doubt come to know by now, the land of demons doesn't have a lot to it beyond our history and culture. The neighboring land of swamps provides a natural barrier to enemies, and the mountainous regions nearby provide a lot of ore and stone for us. However, those are things most every country has. Most of the land of demons' acclaim comes from their history of, well, slaying demons like Morio, Niji added. Cheyenne nodded and sipped her tea. For thousands of years something has drawn them to this area. Our ancestors developed specific techniques just for defeating demons and other malevolent spirits. However, doing so meant that we ignored most practical ninjutsu and genjutsu. Naruto felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Ghosts and demons and all that stuff was way too creepy. Ninjas he could handle, summons he could handle. All of that stuff was still just normal ninjutsu. But demons? That was a whole other level of creepiness. There was just no way to deal with them. Naruto, you seem a bit pale, Lee observed. Demons and ghosts creep me out. Even fighting that Morio guy was terrifying. On that I think you and I agree, Cheyenne giggled. But enough about all that stuff. I want to show you all something. The priestess stood and led them all outside. It was another gorgeous day outside, and the wind was blowing softly across the stone courtyard. The White Lily Palace was as beautiful outside as it was inside. Large white stone walls dwarfed the palace proper, creating long shadows in the early afternoon sunshine. Guards patrolled back and forth, giving orders and running messages between each group. However, the main thing was the courtyard itself. Stone paths flanked by rows of green grass, trees, and plants snaked outward in an odd curling fashion. They seemed to feed back into one another, forming abstract rings of pathways that extended out to the walls. Cheyenne led the group along the paths, speaking all the while. The White Lily Palace is the crown of the land of demons' cultural sites. It has stood for over 1,200 years, and was only rebuilt once after an attack from a nearby country. Every part of it was built classically, with additions being made by only the finest architects and craftsmen. It is without a doubt impressive, Niji observed, his Byakugan active. I can sense rivers of chakra flowing in and out of underground networks, a defensive measure passed down to us. At a moment's notice, a barrier can be raised over the entire estate to protect the occupants. In the past, it was used to protect civilians from demons when they came. When Morio's ghost army first arose, it proved strong enough to turn away their wrath. Whoa, that's crazy, Naruto breathed. There are other, lesser, defenses in the area, but none compare to the barrier. Its activation and details are kept secret, of course, Cheyenne explained. However, that's not what I wanted to show you. They turned the corner and were met with a veritable sea of color. A long field of flowers, herbs, and plants stretched out across one side of the palace. Naruto was no gardener, but he had seen a few of the plants in Sakura's medical books once or twice. Regardless, it was without a doubt a beautiful arrangement. Tenten gasped in awe as she stepped closer to it. This is the Garden of Prosperity, a project my mother began as a young maiden. At first it was merely a small garden she kept as a hobby, but as she grew up she added to it bit by bit. Rare medicinal herbs and plants with a variety of uses were brought to the garden so that they might be saved. In fact, some of the plants here are extinct in every other region. Amazing, there must be several thousand species of plants here, Niji breathed. Yes, while my mother was alive she and I would tend to this place. She laid a hand over her heart, remembering the memories she had of her mother. But now it's been up to me and a few of my servants. This place is amazing, Cheyenne. I'm surprised you can do it on your own, Naruto said in awe. She blushed. Well, it's not all me. Besides, not all of these plants need a lot of care. Really, I just do it as a hobby. It's quite relaxing. It's still impressive though. There's no way I could do something like this. Well then, maybe I can teach you, Cheyenne said, getting close to Naruto, who was forced to lean back to avoid headbutting her. It's super simple, but it's a great way to relieve stress. He thought about it as he took a step back. Sakura liked gardening, didn't she? And Shikamaru's family had their own garden in their forest, so maybe there was some merit behind doing so. It wasn't like he had much to do in the meantime, so it couldn't hurt. Sure, you can count on me, believe it, Naruto agreed confidently. If Cheyenne could have melted, she would have. Niji rolled his eyes at the mushy display as his teammates sniffled at the young lover's antics. Who would have guessed that the energetic troublemaker of the Leaf Village would make for such a good fiancé? Lee could hardly wait for the wedding day. Lady Cheyenne, Lord Uzumaki, Nobuo came up to them in his officer's garb. It is good to see you two out and about. Hello, Captain Shiganshina. Is everything well? Cheyenne asked politely. Yes, my lady, all goes well. I merely thought it would be good to check in with how our guests are settling in. Good to see you, buddy. Naruto clapped a hand on the man's shoulder. Was wondering where you ran off to. My duties as captain of the Royal Guard keep me busy, unfortunately. I'm glad to see that you've been adjusting well. It's been a process, Naruto admitted, scratching the back of his head. The young man smiled and laughed at the blonde ninja's hesitation. Cheyenne suddenly perked up, as if remembering something, and excused herself. It left the ninja and the guardsman alone in the garden to catch up. Nobuo's duties were usually pretty involved, which kept him busy, but he also doubled as Lady Cheyenne's personal bodyguard when she went out. Naruto hadn't really been sure when they first met, but the captain was a competent fighter. Even without ninjutsu or genjutsu, Naruto could see it in the way he held himself. He was practiced with a sword and a bow, and while he likely couldn't compare to Lee or himself, against your average bandit or thug, Nobuo would undoubtedly win. After a few more minutes of enjoying the sunshine, Cheyenne returned with both Irika and Teruho held in her arms. The two infants slept softly in her arms, content to be carried by their mother. Naruto went to say something but was stopped as Team Guy intercepted him to look at the babies. Irika woke up a little bit only to get an eyeful of bushy brows. Instantly, the child was amused and reached out towards the funny green man. Lee, for his part, was immediately smitten and cooed softly alongside Tenten. Niji, at the very least, restrained himself to admire the children from a polite distance. Cheyenne laughed softly at seeing grown, battle-hardened ninja melt so quickly around a couple of babies. In lieu of saying anything to interrupt the moment, Naruto stepped over to get a better look at the two. Irika was still very much enamored by the strange-looking man hovering over him, but Teruho just kept sleeping. Maybe if you didn't cry for several hours a night, Naruto thought humorously as he absently brushed a lock of Cheyenne's hair off her shoulder. The priestess jumped a little at the touch, but said nothing as the ninja finally got a hold of themselves. Naruto felt a tight grip on his shoulder moments before he was pulled into a bone-crushing hug by a tearful Lee. Oh Naruto, he cried dramatically. To think someone like you could help create such beautiful young lives. Hey, what does hurt? He was cut off as the hug redoubled in strength. If I could be so lucky as to raise such beautiful children, then I could die a happy man. You must cherish them and Lady Cheyenne. Promise me that. I promise, Lee. Lee released the hug as Naruto nearly fell to the floor, only steadied by Tenten. She laughed as she helped dust him off, trying to work some life back into the blonde ninja. Meanwhile, Niji approached the young priestess and gave her a nod. The fifth Hokage is likely expecting us to back sometime this week, but I imagine we can stay a while longer. In the meantime, if you need anything from us, please don't hesitate to ask. Lady Cheyenne smiled. Thank you, Niji, truly. I do have a question though. Please ask it. It's just, what do you think will happen with Naruto now? Even way out here we've heard about his adventures, how he saved your village from a powerful shinobi. I'm worried that he may be called back into action, or, worse, that trouble may follow him here. The insightful comment brought pause to the Hyuga Jonin. It was certainly possible, after all. The village owed Naruto a debt they could never hope to repay, but that also meant that he was saddled with great expectations. Their enemies hadn't been destroyed, merely delayed and set back. It was possible they would go after the land of demons to get to Naruto. Niji didn't want that to happen. It would place Cheyenne and her children in the line of fire, and without a dedicated force of ninja, the land of demons would stand no chance. Was there a way to fix those concerns? He thought, and ultimately decided on a response. I won't lie to you, it's certainly possible. Lady Tsunade was adamant on Naruto coming here, and I believe she expects him to stay here for at least a significant period of time. Whether or not that has anything to do with separating him from our enemies, I cannot be sure. In regards to those who might come after Naruto, Niji glanced over at the blonde ninja who was currently engaging Lee in a wrestle match. I intend to speak with Lady Tsunade. Perhaps an alliance between our two nations could provide security. Cheyenne supposed that was as best as she could get. Peace had an unfortunate tendency to breed softness, and the land of demons had largely been bereft of conflict in the past 100 years. Barring Morio, her people were not accustomed to fighting. They had no ninja, no hidden village, only a standing force of soldiers that still paled in comparison to other nations. The security of the land of demons had always been a pressing concern for Cheyenne, but with the arrival of these ninja, Niji, I have wanted to address our security concerns for a long, long time. We've always been a small, isolated nation and have relied on that for security. However, with your arrival here, I wish to speak with you more about a project idea I had. Niji raised an eyebrow. Oh, this is it, she thought to herself, steeling her nerves. She stared the Jonin in the eye and finally spoke. I wish to found a hidden village. Naruto wasn't sure what Cheyenne and Niji were talking about, but it seemed pretty important. Lee yelled something about giving in and Naruto released the armbar he had the taijutsu user in. As his fiancée and Niji came over, the latter seemed to be engrossed in deep thought. Hello Naruto, enjoying the garden so far? Cheyenne smiled beatifically at the young man. Oh yeah, you bet. I've never seen this many flowers before, it's amazing. Not even Sakura's garden could compare, he said. Glad you enjoy it. You know, there's a beautiful part of it just over yonder. We could talk about things in private. Naruto glanced back at Team Guy, who was currently engaged in an argument of their own, mainly between Tenten and Lee, who seemed to disagree on the fairness of the wrestling match. Taking that as his cue, Naruto nodded silently to Cheyenne and the two slipped away, Iruka and Toroho in tow. It wasn't much of an escape, considering the mostly flat garden sort of gave away their position, but it was secluded and peaceful. Sitting among a bed of colorful flowers and plants, the two young parents took in the beautiful vista. A soft, warm breeze flowed over the walls and through the garden, providing some added comfort to them both. Naruto held Toroho in his arms, the young boy having finally awoken only to decide that now was a good time to rest his eyes again. Heavy sleeper, ain't he? Naruto asked as he held the boy close. You have no idea. I swear, that boy is going to be nothing but lazy when he grows up. Then again, his brother might turn out to be as big a troublemaker as you, Cheyenne giggled. Naruto laughed along with her. I doubt that. You have no idea the kind of antics I got into as a kid. Well, I guess you'll need to give him some pointers. She nudged him with her elbow and scooted closer, leaning against him. Naruto's heart skipped a beat, but he tried not to show it. Since when was she so touchy-feely? Toroho burbled something in his sleep and Iruka replied with a much more enthusiastic coo. Was that some sort of secret twin speak? Cheyenne giggled again and observed the garden before them. There were times when she and the original Toroho would come out here and just play. She remembered the time she accidentally trampled some of her mother's daisies and had been lectured for hours about being more ladylike. Toroho had found that so funny. But he was gone now, and in his place he had left a precious gift for her. The chance to live, to grow, to have children. Everything she had wanted growing up. And now she was here, her child in her arms and the man she loved sitting next to her. Guess you always did look out for me, Toroho. The thought was bittersweet, as were the memories. Everything okay, Cheyenne? Naruto asked. Yeah, just thinking, geez, we have to set a date for the wedding. Why yeah? I suppose we do, he scratched his cheek nervously. Man, I never thought a guy like me would get married. Cheyenne leaned in closer. And I never thought I'd have kids. Fair enough, he chuckled. Fair enough. The two descended into a comfortable silence. Idly, Naruto rubbed his son's head and let the kids sleep. He wondered what they would be like when they grew up. Should he be saving for their education? Wait, did he even have to pay for education? Cheyenne was technically in charge of, well, everything, so maybe they could get a free ride. That didn't sound fair, but it sounded agreeable. He shook the thought from his mind. No way was he going to accept free handouts. He was a Leaf Village ninja, and no one from the Leaf Village cut corners. Except maybe Shikamaru. I guess I'll need to send invites too, Naruto realized aloud. Man, my friends are going to have so many questions. You're telling me. You should have seen the chief handmaiden when I told her the father of my kids had left months ago, she said in an amused tone of voice. Another stab of guilt that made him choke lanced through his chest. Sorry. Nah, it's not like you could have known. I didn't even know until weeks later. By then, well, everything sort of got in the way. Her words didn't completely quell the shame he had, but they helped. There seemed to be something on her mind though, a topic she was dancing around. He didn't want her to feel like she couldn't talk to him, but bringing it up felt too blunt. He had often been accused of not seeing the forest for the trees by Sakura, whatever that meant. Iruka pawed at his own red hair curiously, playing with it like it was the most amusing thing ever. Toroho woke up for a moment to observe his twin's actions, and then let out a small, indignant huff. Naruto nearly burst out laughing at his son's suddenly mature mannerisms, but held it in to avoid disturbing the quiet atmosphere. Yup, definitely a pair of Uzumakis. Naruto thought that they would probably have a killer comedy routine when they grew up. Cheyenne observed the way he humored the two babies, wiggling his fingers at them. With a smile, she shut her eyes and enjoyed the warmth of the day. Hey Naruto, I wanted to propose something, Cheyenne began. It's not even a full idea yet, but I've been giving it some thought. The land of demons isn't especially powerful, but we've never had a need for ninja or, actually, any ninja at all. You'd be the first permanent mainstay. Okay, he followed along so far. She sat up a bit. We need to talk about it a bit more, but how do you feel about training some ninja of our own? I've always thought that the lack of shinobi has really prevented us from having any staying power on the world stage. He didn't really know what that meant, but he nodded like he did. He understood that she wanted to train some ninja, at least. It would be a long time before we had anything as close as a hidden village, but you're a powerful ninja. So maybe you'd like to train the next generation of Onigekure's ninja? Onigekure? He asked in surprise. Cheyenne blushed slightly. Just a working title. It means village hidden among demons because, it's sorta how all the other hidden villages work. He gave it some thought. His knee-jerk reaction was to say yes, because that sounded amazing. But he had never been the bookish type, and his algebra, science, and history scores in Ninja Academy proved that. He wasn't sure how good of a father he was, let alone how good of a trainer he'd be. But then again, she had a point. An entire country without ninja felt so foreign to him. How could they expect to repel rogue shinobi, bandit hordes, or even just enemy excursions? In a straight fight, a single trained ninja could effortlessly defeat 20 or more armed soldiers. Without bragging, Naruto knew he was strong. Very strong. But he was only one man, and when Team Guy left he'd be the only ninja in the entire land. It was a tricky situation to be in, and he understood why Cheyenne brought it up. He thought about it a bit more, looking out towards the boundless blue sky above. He could probably get Irika to loan him some teaching scrolls, and he could maybe test the idea on a smaller class to begin with. However, that also required volunteers who were young to be trained. Many, if not all shinobi, began their training from a young age. It was necessary to encourage and train those skills, to hammer them into a young mind. Not to mention the physical training. If he talked to Grandma Tsunade, would she lend him some help? Naruto's head spun with 1,000 more questions, dragging him away from what Cheyenne was saying. Oi, Naruto, she pinched his ear to get him to snap out of it. Are you listening? Ow. Come on, Cheyenne, I was thinking about it. You can't just drop that on me and expect me not to give it some thought. He rubbed his sore ear. Yes, sorry. I thought you were having some kind of flashback. She didn't sound very sorry to him, but he let it go with a brief mutter of indignation. What do you think? It's not impossible. We need to get the right materials, and I would probably want to get some advice from my old teachers back in Konoha, but it could be done. We need a class to begin with though, children who are willing to go through the sort of rigorous training necessary to make it as a shinobi. Do you think that they could make it? He shrugged. I did, my friends did, and dozens more children do in every single village. I see no reason why the land of demons or Ashia would be any different. Cheyenne perked up brightly. If he thought it could be done, then it was worth a shot. When she had brought it up before, she hadn't had the willpower or experience to really know what she was talking about. Her advisors and commanders had dismissed the idea out of pocket. But now, she had someone who knew what they were talking about. She clasped her hands in his. Then let's do our best. Why yeah. We can do it, and I'll be the best teacher this country has ever seen. Believe it. Internally, Naruto was not so confident. I need to talk to Irika-sensei and Kakashi-sensei about what to do. They'll have some advice for me. If Gaara could go from village weapon to Kazekage in a couple months, Naruto could go from hyperactive ninja to awesome ninja trainer in no time flat. Hopefully, Irika and Toroho cried out energetically, their hands reaching towards the sky. Well, at least they're on board. Like I told Lady Cheyenne, it's not a baseless idea, Niji said as they ate dinner together. After a long day of taking care of his children and talking with Cheyenne, Naruto could say he was dead tired. I wouldn't know the first thing about starting up a hidden village, but presuming you had the blessing of the country's leader, it should be easy. But all towns and villages require infrastructure, and getting that set up is much easier said than done, Lee added. Naruto set down his bowl and thought about what his friends were saying. In the end, it wholly depended on Cheyenne's vision. Making a village from scratch was incredibly difficult, and a prospect that he was entirely unsuited for. He could teach someone how to throw a shuriken, how to focus their chakra, and perform hand signs, but he was lost in regards to actually running a village. All of a sudden, an idea came to if they didn't need to make their own village? Ashia was already an established city with space in and around it. Its affairs were already being handled by the standing government, and with his fiancée being the priestess of the land of demons, he could rely on her to handle that part. What if the village was placed inside Ashia? Naruto offered up his idea. The three shinobi gave that some further thought. With Cheyenne attending to some last-minute affairs and both Irika and Toroho laid down for a nap, it gave them some time to speak among themselves. Despite being practiced ninja, the four of them were in the dark when it came to large concerns like this. Maybe we're thinking too big from the get-go. Before you and Cheyenne invest all that time and money into making a village, I would actually try to set up a class first, Tenten countered. Niji and Lee nodded along with her reasoning, and Naruto had to admit that she had a point. Perhaps they were getting ahead of themselves. It would be better to gauge the interest of the people, to see if they got volunteers to become ninjas, and see how Naruto fared as a teacher. He wasn't an idiot, but knowing how to do something and being able to explain it in an understandable way was much, much different. How would he be able to accurately teach someone the correct way to gauge the angle, speed, and force with which to throw a kunai when all that came so naturally to him? He'd had years to hone his skills and perfect his use of chakra, and he'd gotten very good at it. The children he would be teaching, however, probably didn't even know what chakra was. He'd have to teach them the fundamentals all over again when those days were long behind him. No, if he wanted to do this right, he needed advice. I'm thinking that we send a message to the Leaf Village and Grandma Tsunade to get her thoughts on the matter. With any luck, we might be able to work out a deal where the Land of Demons allies with the Land of Fire in exchange for proper teachers, Naruto said, his hands clasped in front of him. That sounds like an excellent idea, Naruto. We'll need to ship back out in the next day or so we can relay that message, Neji added. That would probably be our best bet. The door behind them opened and Cheyenne emerged, still dressed in her day-to-day clothes and stretching her arm. With a yawn, she took a seat next to Naruto and leaned on her hand. Geez, these old geezers just don't quit. If it's not some new community art project, it's some dispute with the addendums to some minor civil law, she sighed. What were you all talking about? The four shinobi took the time to catch Cheyenne up on what they had been talking about. The priestess took in their thoughts, concerns, and ideas with an open mind. She too had to admit that they all made good points. As a leader, who she allied her people with was a big deal. Simply being friendly with one country might alienate relations with another, or worse. However, the Leaf Village was a fair distance away and pretty removed from the politics of the local region. Not to mention the fact that they would make for a strong ally, even without considering the aid they could lend her country. I think that might be for the best. You're right in that it doesn't make sense to invest so much when we don't even know if it'll get off the ground. I'll get our information department to spread the word around the land, and hopefully we'll be able to get volunteers for the program. Naruto, how confident do you feel you could handle teaching a class? She asked him, her voice measured and professional. Naruto was impressed with the maturity she showed, having grown used to her acting more relaxed in front of him. I think I could probably handle it. If I could get some training scrolls and notes from my old teachers, I'm certain I could do it. Most of a ninja's training in the beginning is physical conditioning, learning basic jutsus, and getting a handle on techniques. You would know more than I, but I've also given this affair some thought. After some time to ruminate, I would ask that one of you stay behind to aid Naruto in this endeavor. Cheyenne spoke, shocking all of them. You mean stay behind to help teach the first class? Lee clarified. Cheyenne nodded. Even I can understand that it wouldn't be good if Naruto was forced to teach every single student on his own. Having at least one other qualified ninja to help him would keep things balanced. The three members of Team Guy looked at each other. With all this talk of alliances, it wouldn't hurt to leave an impartial emissary behind. Moreover, it would be a great first step towards convincing the village elders and the fifth Hokage to accept the idea. However, it would also mean leaving behind a member of their team, not to mention it would be one less ninja to defend the village. In a time of instability such as this, would Tsunade really agree to it? I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I don't want to make promises, but as a jonin I am afforded some leeway when it comes to decisions such as this. I think it would be fine for us to leave a member behind, but I will say that at any moment Lady Tsunade might ask them to return, Neji said, staring down Cheyenne and waiting for her reaction. Cheyenne, for her part, was relaxed. It was good that they were receptive, and she would take what she could get. Without a doubt she'd need to meet with this Tsunade person to work something more detailed out. But now the question remained, who would stay behind? I think Tenten should stay behind. Everyone turned to the voice and were surprised to find that Naruto had spoken up. Neji regarded him curiously, willing to hear him out. At their stares, the blonde ninja continued a bit hesitantly. Neji is a jonin and an important member of the Hyuga clan. Even I can probably guess that they would need him back home. Lee, you're an incredible taijutsu expert and one of our most powerful ninja, but I can handle things in regards to that. Tenten, on the other hand, is a weapons specialist and can teach the students the basics of shuriken jutsu and weapon handling, Naruto said with surprising insight. The others were surprised to see the Leaf Village's class clown and former troublemaker speak so sagely. In the confines of the dining hall, devoid of any other servant or guard, silence reigned for a few moments as both Neji and Cheyenne considered the logic. Without speaking it aloud, pragmatically Tenten was the weakest member of Team Guy. That was not a black mark against her though. Her talent with weaponry and her aim was the best in the village. There were few, if any, who could match her in a proper sword fight or in a contest of accuracy. Eventually Neji spoke up. I think that makes sense, if Tenten isn't against it. Suddenly put on the spot, Tenten jumped a bit and scrambled to find the right words. She was flattered, if anything, but also unsure. She'd need to spend a lot of time over here, which meant not seeing her parents or friends for a while. She'd need to be separated from her team for who knows how long. She stammered out before Cheyenne raised a hand. Please, don't feel like you need to give me your answer now. I'd rather you come to the conclusion after given time to think instead of rushing into an answer, she smiled beatifically. I don't want to put you in a compromising position. Tenten let out a sigh of relief and sipped her tea to try and diffuse the awkward tension that had accumulated. For Naruto, he was just glad that no one had guessed that he had made up most of that on the spot. His reasoning was solid at least. He glanced at Cheyenne out of the corner of his eye to see her still smiling, still radiating that confident aura. She isn't the priestess for nothing, she's as cool as a cucumber. He thought to himself. In her position, he might not be so confident in his people skills. He was just glad that no one had put him in charge of a whole country. 2 kids, priestess at 18, and now trying her best to secure an alliance with the Leaf Village. Man, she's amazing. Naruto caught himself in the midst of his thought, and felt a bit of blood creep up his neck. Cheyenne glanced at him, and cocked her head to the side in confusion. Her fiancé looked a bit red in the face. Was he sick? Are you alright? She bent forward to touch her forehead to his. Your face feels a bit hot. I mean, he choked on his words, her face practically pressing against his. Tenten chuckled snidely, taking a bit of enjoyment at how flustered he was after he had put her on the spot. Niji rolled his eyes as Lee seemed to bite back manly tears of joy. Cheyenne finally pulled away, now convinced that he had probably not gotten enough rest last night. She patted his head gently and mentally made a note to get some medicine from the doctor tomorrow. How about we go to bed early tonight? Cheyenne smiled brightly, practically radiating comfort and warmth. Naruto nodded tightly before turning the other way to cover up his blush. Geez, did she have to be so motherly about everything? His heart could only take so much closeness. Dinner concluded not long after, the 3 members of Team Guy taking their leave to talk things over on their own. Naruto and Cheyenne began walking back to their room, the former still a bit hot under the collar. As they walked, they stopped at the nursery to check on the 2 children. The nanny that had been checking in on them, a younger girl, assured them that the 2 boys had been perfect angels. As the 2 looked over the pair of cradles, Cheyenne spoke up. You know, I always worry that my duties as priestess will prevent me from seeing them grow up. It's why I try to make as much time for them as possible. Naruto understood that. Is that why you don't like the idea of servants helping to raise them? It's unfortunate, but necessary that I need to rely on nannies. I keep it to a minimum where I can, but I'll be away for hours at a time handling things. I can't just leave them alone, she explained. However, I don't want them to grow up feeling like their mother is a stranger to them. Yeah, I get it. That was one of my biggest worries on the journey over here. That they might not accept me or something. Looking back, it had been a stupid worry. They were babies, they probably didn't even fully understand who he was. Going forward, I made a promise to be with them always. My mother was amazing, she did everything she could to make sure I grew up with a great childhood. I want to make her proud. Instinctively, Naruto stepped forward and brought the young girl into a hug. He didn't quite understand why, but it felt right. The young ninja rested his chin on his fiancée's shoulder, not saying a word but just letting the moment go on. Cheyenne didn't pull away or say anything, instead merely leaning into it. Eventually, he spoke. You'll do amazing, you've been doing amazing. Besides, I'm here to help now, and I'm not going anywhere. In a few years, I'm sure we'll look back and laugh at how worried we were. Cheyenne chuckled. When did you get so sensitive? I dunno, maybe when my wife convinced me to try out gardening. He smiled cheekily, jabbing his wife slightly in the side. She yelped and laughed as she pushed the blonde boy away, now a bit more wary of his finger jab no jutsu. Naruto took a practiced stance, ready to pierce her defenses and jab her once more. The 2 went back and forth, Cheyenne slapping away his precision strikes as Naruto tried to get past her seemingly impenetrable guard. Eventually, the 2 devolved into a mess of quiet laughter. It felt right. It felt homely. That night, Naruto slept better. The kids cried once or twice, but some quick thinking and a shadow clone later, and he had it under control. Remembering Tenten's advice and some of what Cheyenne had coached him on earlier that night helped. He had no idea why he hadn't thought of this sooner. Using his shadow clones, he could ensure they both got a good night's sleep. The following morning, now rested and ready to take on the day, Naruto got up with vigor. The sun was shining, the birds chirping, and Cheyenne was currently changing in front of him. With a hoarse squeak, he turned on his heel and tried to forget the image that had just been burned into his vision. Was that normal? Was she trying to tell him something? Cheyenne hummed innocently as she donned her priestess vestments, either not taking notice of her fiancé or not caring. Naruto looked back nervously and saw that she was more clothed now, to his relief. Wait, why was he embarrassed? He had seen her naked before. Maybe it was just how used he was for getting clobbered by Sakura when he saw a girl changing. This was normal. Yeah, he was her fiancé after all. They had 2 kids, for God's sake. Confidently, he turned around fully only to get an eyeful of Cheyenne not a foot or so away. Her back turned to him, she fiddled with her brow. Instantly, the heat that had been suffusing Naruto's face came back with double the force. Hey Naruto, do you mind hooking my bra? I can't seem to get it, she asked. I mean, can't you do it? He asked, looking anywhere else. I did try, but I can't seem to do it. A little help? Naruto looked back, thoroughly unsure of what to do. What would Kakashi-sensei do? What would Jiraiya-sensei do? Well, on second thought, the latter wouldn't be so helpful in this situation. He just had to do it. This was normal for a couple, and he was a ninja. He wasn't afraid of any bra, unhooked or not. Reaching forward, Naruto clumsily tried to fasten the thing together. Embarrassment quickly turned to confusion, then distress, and then finally frustration as the damn thing just wouldn't clasp. He felt like an ape trying to break into a bank vault here. His fingers fumbled around as Cheyenne hummed innocently. Eventually, she thought to give him some advice. Up, Naruto. Right there, class that. A second later it was done, and Naruto felt like he had just been put through the ringer. It's too early for this, he thought to himself. Thank you, Cheyenne chimed, donning the rest of her clothes. I should check in with the others to see what they decided to do. Bushy Brow is probably already up and at M, and I don't need to get roped into another hug, Naruto said, his fiancée chuckling. Will you be alright for a bit? Of course, it's not like anything is going to happen in the center of my palace. Please don't tempt fate like that. They both shared a laugh as Naruto's blush finally began to recede. He headed for the door and opened it, only pausing as Cheyenne spoke once more. Oh, and Naruto, he turned to her, only to see the coy smile that had spread over her face. Thanks for hooking my brow. Why, you were messing with me, he cried out as she ducked beneath his arm and ran out the door. You minx, anything to see my hero blush like that again, she yelled back as she disappeared down the hallway. She's going to kill me, Naruto thought, but couldn't fight the smile that spread over his face as well. True to his thoughts, Lee was already training in the courtyard. The hot-blooded shinobi was currently balancing a rock on his foot as he walked around on his hands. Neji and Tenten stood to the side, observing their borderline masochistic friend. Naruto walked over to them, receiving a small nod from the former. We make for the Leaf Village today, Neji began, not looking at Naruto. Lady Tsunade will undoubtedly want us back soon. However, after talking about it at length, we decided that Tenten would stay behind. Naruto was a little surprised. In his mind, it was a 50-50 shot as to whether or not they'd accept. Seeing his look, Tenten explained, more than just Lady Cheyenne's idea of a hidden village, Tsunade sent us with you to make sure you were protected. Neji told me that Cheyenne was worried about your enemies tracking you down here, and she has a point. So, we decided that by staying behind I could guard both you and her as well. I guess I understand, but that does worry me. I'm doubtful they would come after you anytime soon. With their recent losses and Lady Tsunade actively trying to hunt them down, not to mention the other nations, they'll have their hands full for a while, Neji added. And training a new generation of shinobi would be a valuable experience for someone looking to become a jonin. So I guess we're doing this then. Alright, then I'll give it my all. Believe it, Tenten nearly chuckled at the blonde airhead's hyper demeanor. Truth be told, she was a bit worried. Both for herself, her team, and her village. Tenten was not a prideful person, and she could acknowledge that many of the other so-called Rookie 9 could and did outclass her. Her talent for weaponry was impressive, but she paled in comparison to her own teammates, let alone other, stronger foes. This could be a good opportunity to hone her skills and develop new techniques. Naruto's words helped quell the feelings of doubt that were niggling at the back of her mind. If he was going to give it his all, then she would too. She fist-bumped the long-time troublemaker turned new father, sharing in his confidence. Neji, watching, also felt a bit relieved that his teammate would be taken care of. The land of demons had a diverse geography and plenty of areas to train. They would both be okay. The four of them spoke more about their plans, and Neji promised to relay Naruto's request for training scrolls and advice to the teachers at the academy. There would almost certainly be more talks in the future, but for now it was the best they could do. The ninja stood at the gates of Ashiya, sharing goodbyes before their final departure. Oh Naruto, throughout this journey I have seen you mature so much. It is enough to make a youthful man such as me cry. Lee sobbed. It's only been about a week or so, Lee. So long. Neji ignored his teammate and addressed Tenten. Take care of yourself. I hate leaving you alone with that one, but something tells me you'll figure it out. Please, I was trained by the guy-sensei. I can handle a loud mouth and a couple of kids, she smiled. We'll see each other again soon, no doubt. Until then, take care of them. I'm trusting you on this mission. You can leave it to me, Neji. With that, the Hyuga turned back to Naruto, who was currently wiping Lee's snot off his jacket as the man hugged him. With a roll of his eyes, he stepped forward and regarded the boy more carefully. It was said nothing was invisible to the Byakugan, but it was plain to see the emotions in Naruto's eyes. A bit of melancholy, happiness, uncertainty, doubt, but also that ever-present confidence and energy that seemed to be infectious. No doubt he would be okay, Neji was sure. As much as he still seemed like that overeager brat he had been at the Chunin exams, Lee was right, he had grown. Perhaps this whole unexpected child thing would prove to be a boon rather than a curse. Only time would tell. With these affairs in order, I suspect we'll be seeing you two in the Leaf Village sometime soon. Lady Tsunade will almost certainly want to speak with Lady Cheyenne about her plans. After a moment, he added. And she will likely wish to see Irika and Teruho, no doubt. Hopefully she doesn't pass on her bad habits to them, Naruto said with a smile. Take care, Neji. Keep an eye on things for me. I will, you can count on me. Until next we meet, Naruto. Lee gave another impassioned goodbye and group hug to both of his friends before following behind his team leader. Tenten and Naruto watched them walk down the road, slowly disappearing into the forest ahead. With her teammates gone, she hoped that she wouldn't feel too lonely. A hand came down softly on her shoulder, and she turned to see Naruto with a determined grin on his face. Let's get back, Naruto, she nearly laughed. At the very least, he was still the same in some ways. The two of them walked back to the palace together, taking in the sights. Ashia was indeed smaller than the Leaf Village had been when they were young, but there was something natural to it. As if every part of it just clicked, and there was no friction between the people here. Citizens and travelers waved their hellos and shop owners hawked their goods at them. It was a far cry to the air of stigma and hate that had infested Naruto's own childhood. Back then, he hadn't even understood why so many people despised him. It was different now, but for the longest time it had been an uphill climb. At least his kids wouldn't need to worry about that. He'd make sure of it. Ooh, check it out, Naruto, a dango shop. Tenten pointed. Wanna stop there for a bit? Sure. Truth be told, he was a bit hungry. The two were sat down and served promptly. The little shop was off the beaten path a bit, but it seemed popular. Caterers sat down and talked among themselves, sharing details about their day and their plans. It was all very normal, mundanely so. It was a nice change from the thinly veiled tension in the Leaf Village at least. So, do you think you're ready to be a teacher? Be honest, Tenten asked her new partner. Well, I sure hope so, he laughed and rubbed the back of his head. I wasn't the greatest student, but I taught Konohamaru everything he knows, so I can't be that bad. Speaking of, do you think you'll pass down those techniques of yours? That caused Naruto to pause. Tenten continued nevertheless. I mean, the Rasengan and the Shadow Clone Jutsu are your specialty. Do you think the kids would be able to learn them? I don't know. The Shadow Clone Jutsu places an enormous strain on one's chakra reserves and can lead to death. I don't think I want to try and make kids do it. The Rasengan, well, that required immense chakra control. Even he hadn't been able to fully master until after days and nights of training on top of being taught by Jiraiya himself. However, it was also a technique that had been passed down again and again. From Jiraiya to his father, and then to him. Maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing to try and offer his students, but that would only be for much later. A technique of that strength required not only the ability to do properly, but the character to use it properly. He wasn't about to hand out the Rasengan to just anyone. It was food for thought, at least. We'll see, he said, finishing his earlier thought. Let's see if they can master the basics first. She nodded as their food came. The two ate, and conversed a bit more on mundane things. How the kids were doing. Tenten was particularly impressed and envious of his shadow clone trick and his plans going forward. As far as he could tell, he wasn't a regent of any kind and didn't hold a lot of political power. Then again, he had only been here for about a week. Maybe that would change in time. I was wondering where you had gotten off to, a voice cut in. They both turned to see Cheyenne there, flanked on either side by her guards. The people in the shop seemed at awe that their priestess had just walked in. Cheyenne sat down at their table, a pleasant smile on her face. Another stack of papers done. I'm pretty much scot-free for the rest of the day. Or at least, until Advisor Tenma finds me again. Did your teammates leave, Tenten? Yes, Lady Cheyenne. They were hopeful that your ideas would reach Lady Tsunade. I have no worries about getting her blessing to greenlight this project. Excellent, she clapped her hands together. As thanks for your hard work, how about I treat you too? A girl after my own heart. Naruto leaned forward on his hand, drawing a smile from Cheyenne. Don't get comfy, Mr. Uzumaki. I'm a woman of many secrets. I could be manipulating you. If you are, it's working. Tenten nearly gagged as the two flirted sappily in front of her. The two lovebirds kept speaking, occasionally drawing her into the conversation. Before long, it had devolved into the three of them sharing embarrassing stories from their village. And then the old man, he looks at me, and says if you paint one more line, Naruto, that's 2 weeks detention. Naruto was nearly in tears as he recounted the first time the fourth Hokage caught him painting the village faces. Oh no! Cheyenne gasped, trying to stifle her laugh. What did you do? Naruto paused, before speaking. I dumped the whole bucket over the face. The three roared with laughter, the shop still plenty lively around them. The sun had begun to set, casting the city in warm orange hues, the sky a soft purple that stretched as far as the eye could see. The three of them finished their stories and exited the shop, thanking the owner and promising to return. The man, his shop now twice as popular with the local townsfolk, eagerly nodded with a smile. The walk back to the palace was quiet and unhurried. Cheyenne had checked on the kids before leaving and assured Naruto they were perfectly well. Even so, Naruto wanted to see them again today and spend some time with his boys. It wouldn't be too long before they thought their dad wasn't hip or cool enough to hang with. He had to get in his quality time where he could. Cheyenne explained that things in regards to the Hidden Village project were getting underway. The message would be sent out to every village in the Land of Demons, offering instructions and details to those curious. The White Lily Palace was calm as they returned. The guards stationed reported nothing out of the ordinary, and both the palace servants and stewards informed them that all the local affairs had been taken care of. Naruto returned to the nursery and checked on his kids. Iruka was rolling around, babbling gibberish as his brother, as expected, slept softly. How these two would get together when they grew up, Naruto had no idea. Even so, he held Iruka in his arms and played with the child. The infant grabbed at his father's hands, always amused when he managed to get around his grabby guard to tickle him. Naruto glanced over to see Teruho glaring unimpressed at his father. He could almost feel the disapproval and such frivolity radiating from the baby. It made Naruto chuckle deeply, eliciting a matching laugh from Irika. The young father scooped up his other son to share in their games, and despite the blonde child's sour demeanor he, too, lost before the mighty tickling hand. Soon, Naruto was forced to split his attention between each son as they vied for more amusement. A creak of the floorboards made Naruto look up, shy and leaning against the doorframe. Busted boys, Naruto looked down at his kids. Gh but. Irika nodded seriously, accepting the grim nature of the situation. Oh dear, whatever shall I do? The father of my children is spending time with his kids. Oh, how a mother laments moments like this. Cheyenne sighed dramatically, coming over to next to him. Whatever am I to do? I'm afraid the only option is to give in. So it is, she leaned over, giving him a soft kiss on the lips. Despite his initial surprise, he didn't pull away. It wasn't so heavy as making out, but it felt natural. Right. Teruho burbled something indignant at having been forced to see his parents be lovey-dovey of all things, and right in front of him no less. Give any thought to the wedding? She asked him as they broke off the kiss. I did, and I think I know how we can kill two birds with one stone. Oh, go on, mighty hero, she said coyly. Lightly, he flicked her forehead. Cute. I'm thinking we have the wedding in the Leaf Village. It would give us time to talk to Grandma Tsunade and for you to meet all the cool people I know. Cheyenne gave it some thought before nodding enthusiastically. She had never been able to travel too much due to her responsibilities, and she was curious about her husband's hometown. And you know, I need to grab my stuff from my apartment. The comment came out of nowhere, so much so that Cheyenne snorted, which quickly turned into a laugh, which then devolved into a fit. The young couple, in the privacy of a nursery, their kids in their arms, laughed like a couple of hopeless drunks. They laughed and laughed until they were sure the guards at the wall could hear, and they didn't care. It was another week before Naruto heard anything from Granny Tsunade. In that time, he had formed a sort of routine for himself. The initial awkwardness and anxiety between him and Cheyenne had lessened considerably, and the two settled into a sort of easy rhythm. With his shadow clones, he was able to keep an eye on Irika and Teruho without sacrificing time he could spend working. And what a blessing that was considering all the preparations that had to be made for the inaugural class of Onigakure. Cheyenne had given him and Tenten an unused space on the western of the city where the Great Wall met a craggy path of small hills. It was discreet, away from civilians, and provided plenty of room to train. From there it had been a simple matter of setting up training dummies, obstacle courses, and other things. The local guard had been kind enough to supply some manpower and equipment to make it better, which Naruto was thankful for. It's turning out well, Tenten observed as she returned with a jug full of water. Guess all that hard work is paying off. She offered the water to him, and he accepted. His orange jacket laid off to the side, cast away before the blazing heat of the early summer sun. You're telling me. Feels like we haven't had a moment to rest since we began. What can you do? We're not exactly planting daisies. Naruto laughed at that, remembering his abysmal attempt at helping Cheyenne garden. He watched some of the soldiers finish drilling or moving boxes of equipment. As the two shinobi took a break, Naruto heard a voice call out to them. Lord Uzumaki, sir, a regimented, deep voice called out. They both turned to see Sergeant Mizuno striding towards them. The grizzled drill sergeant had come at recommendation from Nobuo, who thought that having only two teachers would be hard, even for practiced ninja. In the time they had known each other, Naruto found the man driven if a bit intimidating. Guess that's by design though, he thought to himself as he stood. Mizuno, good to see you. The man stopped a few paces away and saluted. Sir, we've finished preparation for the target range and the level C training course. By this time next month, we'll have permanent fixtures for the new recruits to be housed in. At ease, Mizuno. You don't have to be all formal with me, Naruto chuckled. Thank you and your men for all the hard work. It'll pay off when we get our recruits, I'm sure, sir. Right you are. We're just waiting on them to show up and Grandma Tsunade's response to the message we sent. If we can bum some scrolls off the old hag, then all the better. Naruto, Tenten said aggrieved. Can't you at least call her Lady Hokage? It's fine. For now though, Sergeant, do you mind sending your men to check the northern trails? I figured they'd be good for a pack run once the kids are at that level. Sir. The man saluted before turning on his heel and walking back towards the work site. That guy needs to get laid. Naruto laughed devilishly as he darted under his companion's threatening attempt to grab him. The two carried on like that for a few minutes longer, Naruto deftly avoiding the stinging strike of her palm while she did her best to swat him like an annoying housefly. They were only interrupted as a soldier ran up the path back to the city proper and addressed them. Sirs, we've received messenger birds from the Hidden Leaf Village. Captain Shiganshina believes them to be a response to your requests. The young man saluted starkly. He asks that you return ASAP. Sweet. We're there. Naruto cried happily. Let's go Tenten. Wait, Naruto. Before she could say anything else he was already gone, racing down the hilly path towards the palace. Tenten followed close behind as best she was able, but the blonde idiot just didn't seem to have a patient bone in his body. The two arrived at the rookery and found a small flock of birds being tended to, each one carrying a small pack with the Leaf Village crest on it. Nobuo was already there, giving orders to the men when he saw them come in. Lord Uzumaki, Madam Tenten, good to see you too. These birds arrived just half an hour ago. We've been able to relieve them of their contents, mostly notes and scrolls. However, this letter was addressed to you personally. He handed a sealed and stamped envelope to Naruto. He opened, pleasantly surprised to find that it was from Grandma Tsunade. Dear brat, hope things are getting along well over there. Miji and Lee both reported good tidings, which makes me relieved. Things in the village are going well, and after talking it over with the geezers we agreed to try out your idea. What we sent isn't quite everything, but it will be enough to get your idea off the ground. Iruka himself was adamant on including a parcel of his own, which I'm sure has arrived with this message. On another topic, I won't lie and say we aren't curious as to what your kids are like. Somehow word got out among the rookies and it raised a whole tizzy. If I were you, I'd bring those ankle biters back so the rest of these grown men and women can coo over them. Me included. More seriously, I hope you're okay. I hope Cheyenne and the kids are okay. Take care of yourself, and take care of them. When you return, I want to give you a present. Until then, yours truly, the 5th Hokage. Naruto didn't realize until he put the note down that his eyes had gotten a little misty. He'd be sure to return so he could tease everyone about how un-ninja-like they were. Seriously, getting excited over a couple of babies, weren't they supposed to be shinobi? Naruto wiped his eyes with a small smile before pocketing the note. True to Tsunade's words, the birds held an assortment of notes, test questions, training techniques, and pointers on the basics of being a ninja. It was enough to get started at least, and that was all Naruto needed. He and Tenten sorted out the scrolls until they both had a better idea of what they were working with. With this, they could form the curriculum and begin setting benchmarkers to test their new students on. It's all coming together. By this time next year we'll have this down, believe it! Naruto cried as they both walked back to the palace. Yeah, I gotta admit I wasn't sure if Lady Tsunade was going to go for it. Or rather, if those cranky old advisors would, Tenten said nonchalantly. Still though, can't complain. All we have to do now is wait and see. Oh, hey guys, the two of them stopped as they heard a voice call out to them. Cheyenne, flanked by a guard on either side, walked down the hall to meet with them. Coming back from setting up the training grounds? Even better, we got the response from Granny. We've got her support, and she sent us a bunch of learning material too. This way we'll be ready for anything when it comes to training our new recruits. Cheyenne clapped her hands together. That's wonderful. I knew it would work out. According to the local administrators, we managed to get a handful of interested folks from around the country. I sent a small contingent of guardsmen to gather them up and bring them back. Awesome, this is going to go great. Believe it! Naruto cried victoriously. I'm sure you'll do great, hun. Cheyenne leaned in and shared a quick kiss with her fiancé. I have to get back to work so I'll see you two around dinner time. I swear, it's like some of these old guys wouldn't be able to breathe without triplicate documents giving them approval to. I'm sure. Well, you just let us handle everything else. See you tonight. The two shared another quick goodbye kiss and parted ways. Tenten glanced at her companion and appraised him. He had fallen into the swing of things with a sort of grace that she didn't expect him to have. Granted, Naruto had always been a roll with the punches sort of guy, but still. At the very least he seemed more mature, like Niji said. Tenten had been sure that the day she saw Naruto being all proper and grown up would be the day pigs flew, but here they were. She glanced at him again and found a red-hot blush had crept onto his face, a dopey, overly sappy grin plastered on his face. Or maybe not, she thought with an eye roll. Boys, and it's like, I know I'm the priestess but you don't need to run everything by me. I don't know about town zoning laws so how I can be expected to sign off on opening a new mine so close to Kuroyuri. Cheyenne's complaints were muffled somewhat as she spoke into Naruto's chest. The two had retired back to their room after dinner. As he had come to realize, Cheyenne hadn't really been able to vent about the more stressful aspects of her job in a while. It had become a nightly ritual for him to listen to her get her anger out. The young priestess laid across the bed, her head nestled on his stomach as he read the contents of one of the teaching manuals he was gifted. He hummed in agreement either way. Seems like passing the buck to me. Like they don't want to make the decision. Yeah, she rolled over to look up at him. Old people, right? He glanced down with mock surprise. Are we not considered old? Cheyenne laughed and flicked his forward, rolling onto his side to lay down next to him. Maybe you with all those gray hairs, but I'm going to be young forever. Ouch, no immortality for your husband? Cheyenne laughed again and relaxed, now out of her vestments and into something more comfortable. Formality was key, and the land of demons' style of dress was somewhat odd. A mix of old-fashioned and pseudo-formal. She'd been trying to convince him to ditch the bright orange jumpsuit in exchange for some of the land's best fashion trends. Thus far, he'd put up a good fight against doing so, but it was hard rotating two sets of identical clothes every couple days. It was just a matter of time before she put him into one of those odd dress shirts she seemed to like so much. Did you check on the kids today? He asked her idly. Yup, Teruho was still asleep, as usual, and Iruka was trying to crawl out of his cage. I swear, the kid's a monkey. A really cute, perfect red-headed monkey, she sighed. He just about gave me a damn heart attack. Luckily, he's got low battery power like his brother. I'll check up on them tonight to make sure they're okay. He would never admit it to her face, but being able to make shadow clones so he could spend time with his kids was a major plus. Maybe he should teach her to do it as well? He chewed on that thought for a moment before filing it away. If he did want to do that, he'd need to coach Cheyenne on it personally. It was a technique that required a large amount of chakra, and he didn't want her to risk her life. What ya thinking about? She poked the side of his face. Oh, you know, how amazing I am, he said, earning a flick to the temple. Alright. Just thinking about random stuff. Wondering if I should train you to use chakra. Why? I dunno, guess it wouldn't hurt. But you're pretty busy, and it would be a lot of training. More of an errant thought. Cheyenne leaned back. Maybe, when I have more time. You could give me private lessons. The emphasis she put on private had him looking over. He found his fiancée laying there, a coy grin on her face. She leaned in for a kiss which he reciprocated, and soon one thing led to another. Time passed, and the couple laid in bed together. If he hadn't been tired before, he had a feeling he'd get to sleep easily now. Cheyenne herself was nearly there, her breathing soft and even. He heard her mumble something, half awake. I've been thinking, I'll need to pass down the title of priestess someday. I want to make sure that there's someone to take up the mantle. He followed her line of thinking. You want a daughter? She leaned back into him more, sighing pleasantly as he wrapped his arms around. For a moment she said nothing, and he thought she might have gone to sleep again. However, just as he was about to try and get some shut-eye himself, she spoke. Not now. When we're in a more comfortable spot. When things are a bit slower. You have your work, I have mine. I want the boys to grow up a bit. Me too, Cheyenne. He leaned in and gave her a kiss on the back of her head. Go to sleep, we can talk more tomorrow. She mumbled something incoherent in response, and he knew he had lost her to the clutches of sleep. He followed not long after, drifting away into a warm, peaceful slumber. That night, he dreamt of his village. He dreamed of him being with his parents again. Them going to the park together, waking him up in the morning, laughing and spending time with him. Things he never had, but he did now. The weekend came quicker than he thought, and with it the new recruits. He, Tenten, and Sergeant Mizuno stood at prompt attention upon a temporary wooden stage. A soft wind swept across the hills, rustling the grass and providing some relief from the cloudless blue sky. From their vantage, one could see almost the entirety of the city. To the west lay the massive wall that protected the city, and further north was the path towards the mountain ranges. Mizuno had assured them both that the trails would be fine, and that further up the paths were areas perfect for wilderness survival training. There's less than I thought, and Naruto wasn't sure if that was a blessing or a curse. The kids who stood before them numbered 18 in all, their ages ranging from what appeared to be 7 at the youngest to the oldest at 11. Hardly fair, but they had to take what they could get. The fact that they had come at all was heartening at least, but the butterflies in his stomach were wreaking havoc on his anxiety. He could do this, he was a ninja and he had faced down harder prospects than this. He just needed to find his stride. He cleared his throat to get their attention. Hello, and good afternoon. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and to my left and right are my fellow instructors, Sergeant Mizuno and Tenten. We will be your trainers and mentors as you become the first shinobi to grace the land of demons. All of you have taken a bold first step to becoming ninja, and for that you should be proud. However, things will only get harder from here. As the first class, you must set an example to all who come after you. The proclamation caused a stir among them, as hushed whispers and nervous looks were passed around between them. Luckily, Mizuno stepped in before it could reach a fervor. Silence! He called out, loud enough to quiet them in an instant. The introductions are not yet over. Remain silent. Nodding his thanks to the man, Naruto continued. I won't lie to you, the career you've decided to undertake is punishing and dangerous. You will learn real-world skills here, you will be pushed to excel, and you will get hurt. He saw one girl with shaggy brown hair flinch as if he had threatened to physically hit her. He filed away her face in his mind for later. As callous as it sounded, if they couldn't even handle a speech without losing their nerve, they were not cut out to be ninja. Still, he could see the resolve in others. A trio of identical boys in matching dress shirts, slacks, and suspenders faced ahead almost proudly. An older girl in a high-waisted skirt and rolled-up sleeves seemed to take his words as a challenge, smirking all the while. Yes, there was some spirit here. Instructor Tenten will explain how things will go from here on out. He splayed a hand to her and stepped back. Your training will not be focused at a grade level like other academies. Rather, we will be performance-based. Before you are made genin, the lowest rank of ninja, you must pass the D, C, B, and A levels in that order. When we believe your class to be ready, you will be given the chance to attempt the courses or mock missions to move to the next rank. Some of you will mature faster than others, that is just a given. However, we are committed to your success. If you do not pass a level on the first try, we will give you the training you need to pass it the next time. Performance evaluations will test various things, including your technique, physical aptitude, mental aptitude, and chakra control. Once you have completed the A level, You will officially be considered genin. A hand was raised, and Tenten paused. She glanced at Naruto, who just gave a shallow nod. The weapon kunoichi pointed towards the hand, and a young boy in thick-rimmed glasses spoke up. Does that mean we won't all graduate together? It does, Mizuno interjected. However, if all goes well, we expect all of you to be at the level necessary to complete the evaluation when we decide to give it. Until then, it will take as much time as it has to. Right. However, those who are unable or unwilling to improve will be dropped. If it becomes clear that this is not the career for you, we will send you back home, Naruto finished. Your instructors and I would rather see you alive in a safe career than dead because you wanted to play ninja. The words were harsh, but necessary. Life as a ninja was often violent, and it could be cut short at a moment's notice. If these kids were serious about being shinobi, they deserved the unmitigated truth. There was no one to sugarcoat things on the battlefield, and they would be expected to fight. That meant weeding out the ones who were unfit to serve as ninja. The performance evaluations had been a compromise of different ideas to make up for the lack of existing structure that a bigger village had. The training would be more ad hoc, based in the real world instead of a classroom. We will begin today by splitting you up into 3 companies to test your current abilities. This will give us a benchmark and allow us to tailor our plans going forward. The following people will be with Instructor Tenten, now Aoyama. Yuma Shiraku Mizuno listed off the names and the kids began to break away. Naruto let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had gotten through the first step with flying colors, now he just had to keep it up. In the end, he was left with the largest group composed of 6 kids. Most of them seemed to be of an older stripe, around 10 or so if he had to guess on most of them. He had gotten the triplets, but not the girl who was in Tenten's group. He spotted the scruffy-haired girl alongside the glasses boy and one more girl whose hair was cut so short she was nearly bald. He saw the indent of a crooked scar across the side of her head, reaching up and around to the back. The scruffy girl was wearing too many layers for the summer heat, with a large brown jacket and dark green scarf over top a long plaid scarf. The boy in glasses appeared more suited to a classroom than a muddy field, and the bald girl regarded him with a sort of detached patience as he surveyed them all. All right, while they get settled I want to hear some names. You 3 triplets I assume? The biggest one nodded, that same cocky smirk on his face. Names? Okino Bruise, he said, his voice nasally and almost deriding. Mitsuji Bruise, piped up the other one. The final one glanced at his brothers before adding. Wakita Bruise. The Bruise brothers, HM? Alright, I'll try to remember which is which. Correct me if I get it wrong. Naruto glanced at the glasses kid, bidding him to speak. Yes, sir. Kugo Keiru from Akiharu, sir. He nearly saluted before realizing that maybe it wasn't appropriate, which had the unfortunate effect of making him flap one of his arms before he set it down. Noi Arisa, the bald girl stated before he could call on her. That left the final girl who seemed to draw in on herself. She muttered something under breath and coughed, before repeating it a bit louder. Naruto could see that she was clearly lacking in the self-confidence department. Speak up, he said, trying his best to seem stern without being mean. Moma Adu! She yelled, clutching at her coat. Thank you. He penned down the name and added a note about her shyness to his clipboard. He had an idea of their names, and a bit of their personalities. He put the clipboard under his arm and addressed them as a group. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm a ninja from the Leaf Village. I don't like icebreakers, so I think the best way for you all to get to know each other is through working together. We'll be going through 3 exercises today, a target range, an obstacle course, and a small mock mission. Through this, we'll gauge your strengths, weaknesses, and what things we should know going forward. Mock mission? Wakita raised an eyebrow. Raise your hand next time, Wakita, Naruto said sternly. And yes. It will be an exercise where you will try to obtain a flag from me in a set amount of time. I'll explain more as we get closer. The young boy lowered his hand, still smirking. Naruto had a feeling those 3 would be a source of grief for him going forward. He looked over the assembled children to see Tenten giving him the wave as Mizuno led his group towards the obstacle course. His comrade would take the mock mission, leaving his group to go head towards the target range. Truth be told, it wasn't much to look at. The soldiers had done their best with what they had, and to their credit they had gone the extra mile. Painted lines boxed in the range and provided different points from which one could attempt to hit their mark. The children were all lined up next to a table that was laden with kunai and shuriken. Naruto went over the basic safety procedures, how to hold these weapons, what not to do, and basic range safety before glancing at his clipboard once more. We'll be testing your throwing technique and accuracy. If you don't do well, don't get discouraged. This is merely to ascertain your current level, Naruto explained. Orino, you're up first. The large boy stepped forward, a kunai clutched in his meaty fist. With a nasally snort, he reared back and tossed the thing down range. Naruto watched it fly, analyzing its speed and direction. A bit wobbly, but it hit the target dummy on its abdomen, just above the right hip. 2 more, then switch out with Wakita. The next 2 volleys were roughly equal. The boy had more force than aim, which made the shots off center if more powerful. Naruto penned down the notes and had the next bruised brother come up. Wakita, for all his weaselly sneering, proved to exceed his brother. The boy's aim was good, so much so that Naruto was convinced he had some level of experience in it. 3 shuriken, each of which hit the center target. No bullseyes, but it was impressive nonetheless. On and on it went, with Mitsuji bringing up the rear among his brothers and Kaoru not even managing to hit the dummy at the standard range. He saw the well-to-do boy sulk as he paced back towards the rest of the group, head hung low in shame. He's going to require practice. His form and aim need work, but we can train that in. He glanced at Momoi and her attempt. Her, on the other hand, is something else. The young, frizzy-haired girl didn't even seem to be keeping her eyes open as she threw the knives. 2 of the 3 attempts didn't even make it to the dummy, let alone hit it. He heard a familiar scoff from behind him, but didn't turn around to chastise Mitsuji. Instead, he tried to watch the girl. She seemed to flinch the moment she threw the knife, as if she expected it to bite her in retaliation. Was it fear? A ninja who was afraid of throwing knives and shuriken would not go far, but it was possible. Maybe it was nerves instead. Momoi fell to the ground, winded and barely blinking back tears. Naruto sighed as he added some more notes to his clipboard, appending a thought that he should keep an eye on her. The final one to be graded was Noya, who strode forth without a care in the world. She stepped aside Momoi, who was helped up by Kaoru and taken back to the group. The blonde ninja could tell this one was different from her classmates. There was something about the way she held herself. She knows what she's doing, was his immediate thought. The shaven-haired girl reared back and tossed the kunai with impressive force. With a soft thunk it stuck into the center of the target. A perfect bullseye. The bruised brothers stopped their hushed joking as Momoi seemed to flinch back behind Kaoru. 2 more times Noya let the knives fly, and each one landed perfectly. Maybe it wasn't so impressive for a ninja of his caliber, but these were supposed to be kids. Recruits from across the land who wanted to try their hand at being a shinobi. Her form and steadiness spoke of real-world practice. Combined with the scarring and impassive attitude, Naruto added a longer blurb for her, including a tail-end note to look into where she was from. It wasn't uncommon for kids in bad spots to try and become soldiers or ninja. Whether they were small-time street urchins or naive bandits looking to get into a more respectable line of work, he'd heard stories in his time. If this Noya girl was one of them, then he'd need to keep an eye on how she developed as well. Giving someone the ability to perform destructive jutsus when they didn't have the mental state to use it responsibly could go horribly wrong. Across the hills Naruto heard a sharp whistle, to which he responded in kind. It was time to move on. Alright, next up we'll be testing your physical aptitude and endurance. There's a small obstacle course up ahead that we've set up. Once you all begin, we'll time you to see how long it takes, he called back as the group marched on. The course was ramshackle by design, simple and straightforward. It began with a short sprint towards a trio of logs suspended over a dug-out pit of mud. Past that was a belly crawl underneath some planks of wood that led into some monkey bars. Once that got through those, it would be a rocky, uneven uphill sprint towards the final platform where they'd be timed. For him or Tenten, it'd take maybe 15 seconds, less if they went all out. But for the kids it would be good to gauge their weaknesses. His class lined up, each person preparing for the slog ahead. Naruto observed them all from where he stood at the platform, eyeing up their confidence. As always, Kaoru and Momo seemed to be the ones lacking the most. When the nearby soldiers gave a thumbs up, and Naruto blew the whistle. In an instant they were off. Noya took the lead almost immediately with Wakita right behind her. Despite her earlier performance, Naruto was surprised to see Momo leading in third. The blonde proctor kept a close eye on their advance as they made it to the balance beams. Noya leapt upon them with ease and rushed forward, barely even slowing down. Wakita took it slower, trying to keep his earlier pace but still being careful. Momo, for her part, slowed to a walk and shimmied along the log, costing her precious seconds. With a brash shout, Orino leapt upon the wooden bridge and attempted to join his brother. However, as he reached the midway point his foot slipped and he was sent careening down below. Naruto marked it down as Wakita and Mitsuji stopped their attempt to complete the race and tried to help their brother out of the pit. Even as Kaoru passed them and Noya reached the belly crawl, they seemed more concerned with Orino than continuing on. By the time the main bulk of the group had reached the belly crawl, nearly 40 seconds had passed. Noya remained in the lead, deftly swinging through the monkey bars and pushing forward. Kaoru huffed and puffed as he tried to keep running, his glasses slipping down past his nose from time to time. He stumbled and nearly fell but managed to regain his balance at the last second. Wahoo! Orino cried, leaping up onto the bars and mud-stained clothing. With his natural strength and brawn the large boy deftly swept through the obstacle in mere moments. Naruto couldn't get the image of an short gorilla with something to prove out of his mind as Wakita followed behind. Momo was nearly knocked to the ground in the initial rush, stopping to catch her breath. They would all need to work on their physical endurance, it seemed. Some more than others. Naruto paused as he watched Mitsuji run up to Momo and pick her up by the arm. Come on, kid, they're leaving us behind. Between the slimy grin and nasally tone, Naruto almost thought he was being condescending were it not for the gentleness with which he picked her back up. Interesting, he noted. Noya climbed up the final obstacle, half running, half bear crawling her way to the top. One of the soldiers remained on standby with the stopwatch as she approached. Even with the uneven footing and sharp rocks, she forged ahead with single-minded ambition. She barely seemed to even notice the scrapes, cuts, and gouges she accumulated as loose rocks came free and gritty dirty rubbed against her skin, turning it raw and pink. Time! The soldier called out as she reached the platform, sucking in gasps of air. 49.44 seconds. Orino and Wakita were next to finish with a time of nearly a minute. Thanks to him helping Momoi, Mitsuji clocked in 15 seconds after that. And finally Keira finished in last place with nearly triple the amount of time as Noya. The boy looked about ready to puke as Momo rubbed his back. The boy had clearly never done hard exercise in his life, that much was obvious. Naruto also didn't miss the cold feeling of disdain that seemed to radiate off the Arisa girl as she looked over them all. As if she thought them beneath her. Wonderful class we've got here, Naruto sighed, finishing his notes. I'll need to get some workout plans together. Specifically for those two, the real kicker would be the social aspect. Being a ninja required working in a squad, as a team, and these kids would have their issues. Time would tell, but for now they needed to get on to the final exercise. See, can't we rest first? Keira wheezed. Yes, sir. Naruto stopped for a moment, and glanced up at the blazing sun. Get some water. We're taking a 5-minute break, but no more. Go, seems kinda generous. Don't ninja go for longer in the field? Noya said, almost a challenge. Yes, they do. But you all are either ninja or in the field. Go. The girl gave him a half-hearted glare, but joined the rest of the group in rehydrating. That one has spirit, sir, one of the soldiers remarked. She has something to prove, all right. Like a lot of these kids, I think. We'll make them into full-fledged shinobi by the time we're done, though, believe it? Naruto responded, clapping the man on his back. Check back in with Mizuno and Tenten. We'll move on to the third exercise after this break. Yes, sir. All right, listen up, he clapped his hands. The final exercise is about to begin. You'll have 45 minutes to complete it to my satisfaction. Keira raised a hand before dropping it to ask. What's the exercise, sir? Glad you asked. Have any of you played or heard of Capture the Flag? He asked, seeing all of them raise their hands. The principle here will be similar. In the hills behind me is a small forest wherein a bright red flag has been planted in the center. You must all work as a group to retrieve the flag in the allotted time. This time, Mitsuji raised his hand. What's the catch, boss man? The catch is that you will need to take it from me. I will be guarding it. If you cannot take the flag in the allotted time, you lose. Anything off limits? Noya asked brusquely. Apart from killing or serious injury, no. You may use the tools at your disposal, and we will be providing blunted weapons for you to use as well. Momoi seemed to shrink back at every word. Any other questions? None raised their hands. Good, the soldiers to my right will lead you to your starting positions. The exercise begins when I blow the whistle. Formulate a plan and get going. Yes, sir! They cried out. Naruto watched them all go for a moment before leaping towards the woods. This would be the final test to prove what they all could do, and whether they could work as a team. He had gotten the idea from the bell test Kakashi-sensei had them do. Here it would hopefully be a bit easier on them, since he himself would avoid using shadow clones or other jutsu. It gave him an odd sense of nostalgia almost, that he would be using his sensei's old tests against his own class. Alright Naruto, time to see what they're made of, he said as he landed down next to the flag. He just hoped this wouldn't blow up in his face. Man, they really went all out, Orino chortled in that voice of his. It was deep, gravelly, and way too grating for a boy barely older than Momo was. She hadn't known him or his brothers for long, and perhaps it was rude to think it, but she wasn't sure if she liked them. There was a strange sense of coordination between them. When one moved, the other two did as well, and nothing they said ever seemed to surprise each other. It was like they were all on some hidden wavelength. It reminded her of the people back home. How insular they had been, and how they had shunned her as a result. No matter where she went, folks were always putting her out. She watched the stocky boy inspect a long knife, trying in vain to shave the hair from his arm with it. Even watching it made her skin crawl. The soldiers had taken them to a staging area where another table full of weapons sat. Swords, clubs, axes, even throwing knives and a bow were available. They were assured that they wouldn't be able to do lethal damage, but that did not mean they weren't dangerous. All around her the pressure seemed. Momo tugged at her hair, a nervous habit she had never grown out of. The only adult here was a single soldier who didn't seem to care about explaining anything to them. Yeah man, guess we ought to find something. Wakita smirked, picking up a sword. Ooh, I like this one. The bald girl brushed by Momoi, nearly shoulder-checking her as she marched up to the table. With an easy confidence she snapped up a bundle of kunai and placed them into a pouch on her belt. They all seemed so good, whereas she had fumbled nearly every exercise so far. It didn't serve to help her mood as one of the bruised brothers finally acknowledged her. Hey yo, Momoi, ain't ya gonna grab a weapon? Mitsuji nearly sneered. She felt a shock of alarm surge through, quick and jarring. If she said no, would he be offended? Was he trying to prod her? If she said yes, she'd need to grab a weapon, and then she wouldn't be confident in picking. They know she was faking, a fraud, a loser. Would they pounce on that? Leave her out of their activities for the rest of their training? Her brain backfired, and though her mouth opened, no sound came out. Excuse me, everyone, a pointed voice came from behind. Momo turned to see Kaoru drawing a diagram in the dirt with a stick. Shouldn't we be taking this time to strategize? Here's a strategy for ya. We go in, we make shit happen, and we grab that flag, Orino chortled, arms folded over his barrel chest. His brothers cackled in response, and Momoe was unflatteringly reminded of a flock of crows. Noya stared derisively at the large boy with a look of mixed disgust and disappointment. Kaoru, however, merely pushed his glasses up and knelt down. The flag is staged here in the center, however Mr. Uzumaki may not be. He could very well try to lead us into an ambush and catch us in our hubris. Who what? Momo detected the smallest of sighs from the proper young man. It means arrogance. Exactly the sort of thing we should avoid as ninja in training. Mr. Uzumaki is a talented ninja. Another snort, this time from the youngest, Wakita. He is. Your own ego aside, he's competent enough to be trusted with our training and is an established ninja of a foreign village. We'd be fools to assume he anything but outclasses us. Lot of big words, but I ain't hearing a whole lot. See, come on guys, let's not fight, Momo murmured, tugging at her hair. It had grown again since the last time she had cut it, and this tension was making it grow faster. More often than not, it was like trying to stop a tsunami with a sponge. She could shave herself bald and by morning the next day it would hang down to her ears. It was suffocating, itchy, hot, and it wasn't helping her already disjointed thought process. If they argued back, what would she even say in response? Oreno opened his mouth, but stopped as his head twitched incrementally towards Mitsuji. With a soft clack it closed, and he returned to merely glowering at nothing. Kaoru took the moment to splay a hand over his diagram, gesturing for everyone to look at it. We'll separate into teams of 2, 3. My brothers stick with me, Wakita said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Okay, teams of 3 and engage in a 2-pronged assault. We'll stagger our approach so if one team is caught in an ambush, then the second team can help them break out of it. I'll be fine on my own. I don't need 2 hangers-on making a bunch of noise and giving away my position, Noya spoke for one of the few times today. Momoe could see that Kaoru was already accounting for that. He wasn't bothering to argue or push and instead just tried to roll with it. He poked at the ground a bit more with his stick, until he seemed to come to a conclusion. Alright then. You can serve as a solo operator, and perhaps our trump card. Trump card? Momoe ventured. She could be the variable that Mr. Uzumaki doesn't or can't account for. In a fight she might be able to take the stick while we keep him in check. Or she can produce a devastating blow when he least expects it. Momoe glanced at the grizzled girl and watched her nod slightly. She wished she could have such a way with words. Instead, the shaggy-haired brunette was forced to the sidelines, waiting in anxiousness for the battle to begin. She had to come back from her earlier embarrassment, and not rely on her classmates to help her out all the time. A sharp, keening whistle erupted from the forest. Instantly, the soldier who was on duty sprang into action. Get moving! Go, go, go! It was like the whip crack that started the race. Instantly they shot off as Kaoru shouted about the plan. Momoe watched the bruised brothers go off together, a vicious smirk on each of their faces. Noya leapt ahead, managing to land upon a tree branch above, and use her momentum to spring forward. Momoe and Kaoru went right, encircling the copse of trees to find an opening. It wasn't long before they found a beaten dirt path that speared directly into the innards of the forest. With their earlier exhaustion already taking its toll, Momoe soon became unable to keep running. Kaoru wasn't much better, panting behind her as they ventured deeper and deeper. The girl's lungs burned as bad as her legs did, each muscle searing with pain that didn't seem to lessen no matter how long she waited. Momoe staggered forward, trying to at least pull off a jog and failing just as quickly. There was a sharp clang from deeper into the woods, punctuated by the guttural snarl of someone being hurt. Hurry! Kaoru ran ahead, and she struggled to keep up. The 2 young children found the source of the sound all too quickly. In a clearing just wide enough to hold them all, the bruised brothers faced off against their mentor, Mr. Uzumaki. The blonde-haired man was fending them off with contemptuous ease. Orino speared forward, fists tipped with iron knuckle dusters only to be thrown on his back as their teacher threw him over his shoulder. Wakita took advantage of the opening and attempted to slice the man's back with his training sword. He never got the chance though, because as soon as Orino landed, Mr. Uzumaki vanished. Momo felt a cool draft behind them, followed by a sudden presence bearing down on both of them from behind. If you want to lay a trap, you're going to need to hide first of all, he said. Get down! Wakita shouted, leaping towards them to try and slice their foe. Momo jumped and tackled Kaoru to the ground just as the blade whistled overhead. Their teacher dodged it by mere inches, moving just enough to get out of its range without jumping away. The young girl caught the image of Mr. Uzumaki smashing his fist into Wakita's jaw, sending him tumbling into the dirt. She looked up to see the blonde man staring down at her, and her heart skipped a beat. She didn't want to be punched. He was too close to run, and if she tried to attack he'd take her down like he had the others. For the briefest of moments, she could see her father in his place. That familiar look of parental disappointment, like he knew that she would never amount to anything. Nothing but a burden, he would mutter when he thought she couldn't hear. It was too much. Stop! She cried out, and her hair responded. Like a tidal wave it grew, cresting overhead to try and smash their teacher with its bulk. She saw Mr. Uzumaki's eyes widen as it came down upon him. With a thunderous smash, her hair finally connected with the ground, but she couldn't feel her teacher trapped within it. Blinking back sudden tears, she turned to Kaoru, whose glasses had been cracked by the fall. He glanced past her, barely noticing her new haircut, and pointed to the flag. Momoi had almost forgotten in all the excitement. She looked back to see Mr. Uzumaki fending off Noya. The bald girl had managed to get behind them, and nearly had gotten to the flag. She heard someone groan nearby and turned to see what kid is stirring. Kaoru rushed over to check on him before looking back to the fight. I can help him. Momoi, you need to help Noya, he yelled at her. But I'd just get in the way. They're so much better than me, I would slow them down. Or I'd make Noya mess up, or, Moma. She flinched. You nearly caught teacher just a moment ago. We can win this, but you need to use whatever that hair thing is. I don't know. Get moving, kiddies! Mitsuji yelled from their side, joining Orino in a bull rush to stop their teacher. Go! Kaoru insisted. Against her better judgment, she did. Her teacher was still battling Noya. The girl went in for a low kick and he easily jumped over it, only to come down like a wrecking ball. Their classmate barely managed to roll away to avoid being crushed. She threw a knife from her pack only for it to be deflected by a well-placed shuriken. Every new angle she tried to use was countered, and Momoi could see why. He was too fast, all his movements were practiced, and each one was made with purpose. She remembered what he had said before: you are either ninja or in the field, and he had been right. They couldn't even slow him down, so why try? She looked to the remaining bruised brothers to see if they shared her trepidation, only to find them with their telltale smirks on. Mitsuji! Orino yelled. Right. The boy rolled low, sending a volley of shuriken at their teacher's legs. He was forced to jump upwards to avoid them. Noya, do something! The girl in question drew a shuriken from her pouch and threw it. At first, Momoi thought that was a pretty poor follow-up attack until the girl made an odd sign with her hands. Ninja art, Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. Instantly, the single shuriken became 10, then 15. As a combined volley they soared towards Mr. Uzumaki. In the air, he had no ability to dodge. Many of them hit home, peppering his chest with the bladed weapons. Mitsuji and Orino stopped cold in their tracks, unsure if they had just mortally wounded the man. Momo's heart leapt into her throat, and she felt tears sting behind her eyes. Had they just killed their teacher? A moment later Mr. Uzumaki's body disappeared in a puff of white smoke. In its place was a single wood log. Transformation! Noya yelled, surprised. Look, focus guys, Mr. Uzumaki spoke from behind them with tempered coolness. Don't get shocked so easily. Her hair reacted of its own accord, spearing out in thickened stalks to try and pierce her teacher. He stepped to the right, and grabbed one of the braids, using his turning momentum to whip her around to smash into Mitsuji. With a bellow loud enough to shake her chest, Orino leapt over both of them and smashed down with both fists, fingers interlaced. Their teacher merely brought up his hands and took the blow with barely a grunt. His fist flashed out and smashed twice into the large boy's stomach before another hit him dead center in the chest. Orino made a sort of guttural sound and tipped over, falling to the ground in a groaning heap. Momoi, perhaps wisely, stayed down and out the way as he approached Noya. The fight was over in seconds. Well, Naruto said cheerily, watching as his students greedily gulped down their jugs of water. I think that went well. I can see a lot we need to improve on, but the potential for everyone is there. We got our asses beat, boss man, Mitsuji huffed, rubbing his chest. The first step to being good at something is sucking at it. I didn't expect you all to beat me, and yet you each surprised me in your own ways. Orino, your strength was exceptional but raw and unfocused. Mitsuji, you took advantage of the proper openings without being overzealous, however you also relied on your brothers too much. Wakida's skill with the sword put me on the defensive at some points, but he was too headstrong to regroup instead of just blindly attacking. The brothers grumbled, but didn't argue with it. Naruto turned his attention to the other half of his class. Noya, Momoi, and Kaoru also seemed to be in dim spirits. It was natural, he supposed, especially for the foremost member. Noya was tenacious and ruthless, but she apparently despised losing. Her pouting reminded him that she was still a kid, ninjutsu skill or no. Noya, you impressed me greatly in this exercise. Your usage of stealth and ambushes is on par with some of the genin I knew when I was young. You also showed your expertise with ninjutsu, something I imagine your classmates are not yet capable of. However, you stayed alone for too long and only tried to work with your comrades at the end. That cost you the advantage you may have otherwise had. I didn't need their help, she grumbled sourly. Apparently you did, he chuckled. Because you lost. The girl seemed embittered at the reminder, but didn't give a retort. He turned his attention to the remaining two. Kaoru, you devised a strategy given little time, few resources, and not much information. The plan you came up with was rough, but its logic was sound. Good work. Thank you, sir. However, your combative skill and physical endurance needs a lot of work. If I remember correctly, you did not aid in the fight at all. Sorry, sir. Don't be, he waved it off. You're here to learn those things. Your inability to fight a full-grown trained ninja isn't a mark against you. Finally, there's Momo. The girl twitched, clearly bracing herself for the stern lecture she would receive. You, perhaps out of everyone here, have the most untapped potential. The words brought her thoughts to a halt. What had he just said? She looked up to see her teacher smiling down at her brightly. You very nearly had me when you did your hair thing, and then again you surprised me. Without hand signs or proper chakra control, you managed to react instinctively to a threat and tried to counter it. That is something only exceptional ninja can do. It's rough, and you lack confidence in yourself and your abilities, but the potential is there. And I intend to find it. He didn't care? He wasn't mad? But she had messed up. She hadn't been able to stop him or get the flag or help her teammates. She was pretty much useless that whole time. She didn't have potential, she was just a flunk out. Even so, his smile didn't go away. Tomorrow, training begins again. 4 hours in the classroom, 4 hours in the field. I see nothing but great things for this class, so long as each of you is prepared to give it your all. It won't be easy, but if you don't give up then I won't either. Believe it, something in what he said, or perhaps how he said it, stirred something in the small brunette. Kaoru fixed his glasses and smiled, apparently on board with the idea. The bruised brothers were the same. Even Noya, for all her bitterness, wasn't averse to his demands. No matter how hard it was going to be, it was apparent that none of them wanted to give up. For Naruto, their enthusiasm sparked a flame of hope in his chest. He had been worried that he had been too harsh on them, too demanding. And yet he could see the way they looked up at him. That fire in their eyes, it reminded him of the troublemaker he'd been all those years ago. Momo especially reminded him of his life. Something in the way she spoke and the way she held herself. It was like a mirror to the way he had been before he had decided to be the class clown. He wasn't going to subject another child to a life like that. Not if he could help it. I'm glad it worked out, Cheyenne murmured into his ear as he leaned his head on her shoulder. They seem like good kids. Feels weird, acting like a teacher, being all stern and authoritative. I used to hate teachers like that back in school, she smiled. Maybe now you see why they acted like that. He had no retort for that, and merely leaned deeper into the crook of his fiancée's neck. Truthfully, it hadn't been bad, but he couldn't ignore the small knot of anxiety at the bottom of his stomach. The worry that he wouldn't be enough to make sure they grew up into fine ninja. He knew, logically, that he probably could handle it. After all, he taught Konohamaru what he knew, but much like his worries about being a father, it didn't matter how much he tried to reason with it. This was something he was just going to need to face head-on. A problem that wouldn't go away until it was finished. You've done great so far, and you have both Tenten and Mizuno to help you. Besides, you're my husband, and that means you can handle anything, he snorted quietly. Is that a brag of you, or me? Yes, she flicked the side of his nose lightly. The kids were quiet today, mostly they just slept. Not looking forward to making them get out of bed when they grow up. You can handle that, I'll be too busy sleeping. The two shared a quiet laugh in the relative peace of their bedroom. For Naruto, the easy rhythm and string of successes made him uneasy. At times, he felt like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. For the facade to fall away and reveal something terrible. Maybe it would be a messenger bird alerting him that the Akatsuki had destroyed the village, or that Sasuke had returned to reap cold vengeance on his friends. Sasuke, he thought wearily to himself. I almost forgot about him. I still owe Sakura that promise. I need to find him. But that meant abandoning his place in Ashiya, with Cheyenne and his students. For now, perhaps he could just set this all up and get it running before he went back on the hunt. He had waited 2 years already, what was another one? Granny Tsunade had told him it was fine, and the 5 great nations were working together to get rid of the Akatsuki once and for all. He could leave it be and attend to his family for a while. They aren't helpless without you, Naruto. You can trust them, he reminded himself. Your hair is growing out, Cheyenne remarked, running her fingers through the mop of sun-bleached blonde hair. Is it? Haven't found a good barber here in Ashiya, and I didn't pack my razors either. He scratched the growing stubble on his chin. Don't think I've gone this long without a trim. His hair had a distressing tendency to grow like kudzu. Maybe it was something he inherited from his mother or his father. The shaggy growth he had had as a kid was more a result of his own attempts at giving himself a haircut. Few places would cater to him, and he often lacked the funds to get a nice cut, so he had just hacked something together for most of his life. When he had been with Jiraiya, the Toads had done their best. I kinda like it, Cheyenne spoke again, surprising him. I like men with longer hair. Have you ever thought about it? He shook his head slightly. Nah, couldn't imagine myself with it. You should give it a try. I know a lot of techniques for hair maintenance, maybe I could try them out on you. That sounded nice. Maybe it was the scalp massage she was giving him, or the warm ambience of their room, but he couldn't find it in him to argue. A change of lifestyle demanded a change of appearance, did it not? Besides, he could always cut it later. For now though, it cost him nothing to humor his wife. You got it, hun. Always wondered what I'd look like with a beard. Don't think I'll let you go all wild man on me just yet, mister, he chuckled before sliding over to rest his head on her lap. She accepted the chance of position without a word, still running her fingers through his hair. There was something almost motherly in her touch. Accepting. How long had he been touch-starved? Even his friends barely had a reason to hug him, and it wasn't like anyone had wanted to touch the demon child. For years upon years there had been no one to really hug him, hold him. He never realized just how much he had missed that contact until he had come to the land of demons. Cheyenne made a small, amused sound as he rolled over to bury his face in her robe. She kissed the top of his head. When you're a bit more awake, I was wondering if you and Tenten could find some time to investigate something for me. He perked up a bit, intrigued but too tired to formulate a coherent question. The words came out as a jumbled mouth salad with a vaguely inquisitive tone to it. Cheyenne sighed softly and leaned in closer. People going missing around the land. At first it was nothing too out of the ordinary, but they found one of the missing ones. Dead, no heart or blood in her. Figured it might need a ninja's touch. No organs? Yeah, and then a few others started showing up. Left abandoned in random places, sometimes miles from where they were taken. Many of them had strange markings on them. Tribalistic paint that I've sent our librarians to look into, he hummed, eyes shut. Do you think it might be something from the land of demons past? Possible, but unlikely, she whispered conspiratorially. Or, at least, not one of the major cults. This one is very odd. Human sacrifice is a horrible, dreadful thing, but many dark spirits rely on natural energy for sustenance. It wouldn't be the first time our people have dealt with it. He wouldn't allow that to pass. As the priestess's fiancé, her people were now his people. As much as the thought of fighting a demon scared him, this moment felt worth protecting. Come devils or ghosts, he'd take all comers to protect his family. That was his ninja way. But for now, though, the call to sleep was too strong to resist. Try as he might, he could feel his will fading. I'll take care of it, he murmured, losing his fight against the dread Sandman. Believe it, I do, Naruto. I do. Damn, Naruto's lips curled in disgust as he and Tenten examined the body. The drizzling rain came down limply from the slate-gray sky overhead. At his fiancée's behest, they had gone out to one of the towns that had found a body. Cheyenne hadn't been lying, it was grisly. The poor man's visage was forever frozen in terror, rigor mortis only solidifying the grim expression until it appeared cut from stone. According to the local guard, a farmer had found the corpse in his barn where it had been left until he and Tenten arrived. Who could do something like this? Tenten breathed. And why kill him like that? She didn't need to specify, it was the most obvious thing about the corpse. The cadaver's chest and abdomen had been cut open, gutted like a fish, and pried open. Where there should have been the remains of organs there was nothing but ragged chunks. There was barely any blood either save for the dried patches on the victim's face and chest. It was enough to make Naruto almost heave, but it also brought up a dozen questions. Organ traffickers maybe? They took his blood and guts to sell on the black market? This thing was more Sakura's specialty, and how he wished she was here. One of our men suggested something similar until we looked a bit more, one of the nearby soldiers mentioned, pointing. Just below the chasm of flesh was a symbol, intricately drawn with painstaking detail. Its black color was now muddled with brownish red where blood had seeped into the ink, but he could discern the image. An almost grinning skull with a snake-like creature clamped in its jaws, the beast curving beneath its chin to swallow its own tail. Around the skull's head strange markings that suggested feathers or spokes radiated from the top and sides of the design. It was something that would have taken hours of work to get right, and it wasn't a simple tattoo either. Worryingly, Naruto was reminded of Orochimaru's curse mark and what it had done to Sasuke. Was this something similar? He and Tenten shared a glance before stepping away from the body, giving the go-ahead to pack it up and take it away. What do you think, Tenten? The incisions were made with a sharp blade, obviously, but that isn't a combat wound. It was done deliberately, slowly. Naruto felt a spark of anger. He was made to suffer then, very likely, she spoke grimly. My best guess is that it was a specialized tool. The edges of the wound weren't ragged and suggest almost surgical precision and steadiness. That kind of thing isn't something one pulls off in the middle of a battle, and he wasn't a fighter anyhow. Reports say this guy was a traveling merchant who went missing somewhere up country. Think that's where we'll find them. It's a start, Naruto mumbled as he stepped away. The light rain had made the surrounding landscape mushy and uneven to walk. The weather perfectly matched his mood. If that had been Cheyenne, he shook his head, banishing those thoughts from his mind. She was perhaps the most well-protected person in this country. Anyone who tried to attack her would be suicidal. Both due to her guards and because of what he'd do to them in kind. He had to focus his mind on the here and now. Mizuno was handling the kids for the first half of the day, teaching them the bookwork of being a ninja, while the latter half of the day was spent doing physical conditioning. It gave him and Tenten time to work out their strategy when it came to dealing with this. I think the best place to start is by following the bodies, Tenten noted. We'll see if they have similar wounds and if there's any connection between them. Something this big, it can't just be one person, can it? Naruto hummed, shifting his foot as the ground squelched. Maybe, but I don't think so. Whether or not this is some cult, however, I'm not sure. Could be a group of sickos who get off on this crap. In either case, we'll bust them up. Right. The two ninja quickly made their way to the next village who reported a body. A small mining town nestled at the base of a large hill. This time, the victim had been a young girl from down south who went missing while gathering herbs in the forest. No relation to the previous one, but the same marking and wounds. Interestingly, the time frame between the two kidnappings was only a day or so apart. It's not just one then, the blond man surmised, rubbing his now stubbly chin. But kidnapping takes time, skill, and planning. No way they could just disappear people out of nowhere and not leave some clue behind. Unless they were also ninja, Tenten said. It was a harrowing thought. A group of serial killers with ninja training was a lot to handle with just the two of them. Especially when they were operating mostly in the dark. Cheyenne had promised to get her own people to investigate and turn up clues. But if they were dealing with rogue ninja, then Tenten and he would be the only people capable of dealing with it. But even the best of ninja were prone to getting cocky or slipping up. We should maybe check out the village where she was from. Maybe we can get some clues on what happened, Tenten said. Naruto agreed, and soon the two were off to the southern end of the land of demons. Kuroyuri wasn't exactly a bustling town, but there was charm to it. The community seemed close-knit, especially with the way they seemed to regard the two ninja with distrust. The village was placed right alongside a small lake to the west and a large span of forest that circled the east and further south. For all intents and purposes, it looked like any other cozy town one would find in such an isolated part of the country. And yet, in spite of the rain having stopped, the dour mood the place radiated left no illusions about how they felt. Naruto and Tenten walked through the town, aiming to get in contact with the girl's family and get an idea of what happened leading up to her disappearance. As they cut through a small marketplace, they heard some commotion behind them. Naruto turned just in time to avoid getting whacked by a wicker basket thrown by a small, buck-toothed boy. He wheezed as though he had just run a marathon, but stared at the two with utter disdain. "Hey, what's the big idea, you brat?" Naruto roared. "Why the hell are you chucking baskets at me? You're the ones who took my big sis away." "I know it," he yelled, drawing attention from the various nearby patrons. "Give her back, you bastards. We didn't do anything." "We're here to figure out what happened," Tenten said gently, trying to assuage the boy's anger. "If you just listen." "Shut up. Your mind games won't work on me. I'm going to beat you up, find your crummy boss, and take her back." Without a second thought the kid rushed them. Naruto didn't even bother to dodge as the boy collided with his hip and was knocked straight to the ground. It wasn't a hard fall or even that much of a tackle, but it splayed the kid out. He huffed and puffed and struggled to even stand, a ghostly pallor having taken hold of his face. The boy looked 2 seconds from passing out, let alone beating them in a fight. "Look, kid," Naruto began awkwardly, unsure of what to say. "I'm gonna." The boy sucked in a breath, raised a fist, and charged. "Get you dash!" He was cut off as a fist crashed down on his head. The boy fell to the ground, dizzied and this time unable to get up. Naruto looked to see who intervened and saw an older boy with a very similar face staring down at the defeated kid. He stayed like that for a moment, before turning back to the two ninja. "Apologies," his voice was a low tremor. "I hope he didn't cause you any trouble." "None at all," the kid coughed. Hey, Mitsuri, what the heck? These guys took Big Sis and you hit me." "They weren't the ones who kidnapped you, idiot. These are ninja, probably sent here to help find her." Mitsuri spoke again. "How did you even expect to fight them?" "I could have beaten them." The three shared a glance that perfectly communicated how out of touch this kid was. After a moment, Mitsuri sighed and rubbed a hand against his face. When he lowered it, he offered the two ninja an aggrieved smile. "Again, sorry for Tanji. He's been like this since Sensei Kawa vanished. My name is Mitsuri Ayasada, and this is my younger brother, Naruto Uzumaki and Tenten. We've been sent by Lady Cheyenne to find out what's been going on around here." Naruto introduced himself and his partner. The boy's face lit up. "Why, you mean Lady Cheyenne herself sent you to find our sister? Please, allow me to invite you back to our house so we can talk more privately." Before they could decline or reveal the tragic news of his sister's fate, Mitsuri grabbed both their hands and began dragging them away. Tanji, not wanting to be left behind, lurched after them in a panting half-jog. It wasn't long before they arrived at their house. It was a simple construction of wood, handmade no doubt, nestled next to a large clearing leading deeper into the woods. It wasn't much, but it had care worked into it as evidenced by the decorations and quality about the building. Mitsuri rushed forward, stepping inside with a shout. "Mom, Dad! There's ninja here to help us." Naruto heard rustling inside as the older boy stepped aside. From within the dim gloom of the house, a burly man stepped out, one hand clasped on a sword. A step behind him, a slim woman regarded them with careful eyes. After a moment the man, their father no doubt, spoke. "Have you come bearing news of our little Aika?" Despite the severity of his tone, Naruto could detect the tremor hidden in there. The small hope that she was okay. He didn't know how to say it. How could he destroy their hope like that? Did he have it in him to look this father in his eyes and tell him that his daughter died horribly? Trapped with indecision, he froze up. Luckily, Tenten was swift to move in with a save. We'd like to speak to you in private regarding what happened. If that's okay, the man relaxed a fraction. Of course. Mitsuri, stay outside with your brother for a while. But, now. The man turned and headed back inside. The older son gave the two ninja one last look before stepping down onto the grass and pulling his younger brother away. Naruto and Tenten entered inside the small home, taking a seat next to a short table. The blonde ninja watched the two boys play outside for a moment, momentarily reminded of his own sons. He couldn't help but notice how Tanji seemed to stop every few seconds to catch his breath before continuing onward. You've no doubt met our youngest, Tanji, his mother spoke softly, a sad smile on her face. Rambunctious, energetic. I hope he didn't give you any trouble. Besides the basket he threw at me, no, the man sighed. That boy. Mitsuri already apologized for him. Tenten waved her hand. He's fine. Tanji blames himself for what happened. He's always been sickly, but the herbs in this region provide a natural supplement for him. It allowed him to play with the other kids, make friends. His sister always fussed over him, and she took it upon herself to make sure we were always stocked up on some. The woman spoke softly. She went missing while gathering said herbs, and Tanji blames his own weakness for it. Since then he's been pushing himself to get stronger, picking fights, accusing people of being the perpetrators. It's disgraceful. He's been causing all sorts of problems while the rest of us are the man cut off with a snarl. We're all having trouble, but he needs to be more mature. I understand though. Nothing is worse than being the one left alive, unharmed, while someone else pays the price for you. Must be frustrating. Naruto lowered his head. We've come here because we know Aikawa was kidnapped from these woods. We're hoping that something will give us a clue to what happened. Did you find her? The father asked suddenly, arms folded. Naruto and Tenten glanced at each other. That's not. His fist slammed down on the table, silencing their deflection before it could fully be spoken. The larger man glowered at them from across the table, one hand resting on his blade. Naruto could see where Tanji got his coping mechanisms from. Taking a deep breath, he broke the bad news to the parents. We found Aikawa's body approximately 20 miles north. It had been left in another town. The woman cringed, then seemed to fold in on herself. She didn't cry, but the silence that came after was somehow worse. The father, for his part, clutched the hilt of the sword with such intensity that Naruto felt he was about to draw it on them. Eventually, though, he loosened his grip and merely gritted his teeth. Was it he trailed off, unable to get the words off? It was quick, Naruto lied wholeheartedly. It at least seemed to offer some comfort to the two. They were silent for long minutes, nothing but the distant sounds of the two boys playing to break up the crushing atmosphere. When the man spoke, his voice trembled ever so slightly. We'll tell you everything we know, but it's not much. The couple told them everything they knew about Aikawa's disappearance. As Naruto thought, there had been no indicator that this was coming. No strange people, no warning signs, just that their daughter didn't come back one day. It was completely out of nowhere. It made him wonder if this was premeditated or if the girl was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. If it was a random kidnapping that made things harder. If nothing tied them together except for circumstance, it was going to be difficult to try and predict these mysterious foes. However, one thing did pique Naruto's interest. Tenten asked if anything about Aikawa would have made her a more desirable target, to which the mother mentioned, nothing at all, save for maybe her blood. That. What about her blood? Naruto jumped on the clue instantly. Her blood, from what I understand, was the perfect donor type. She would sometimes donate it to be used in our clinic, or in the hospitals elsewhere. I don't see how that's helpful. Aikawa was found completely drained of blood, Tenten said. As were the other victims. What? Do you mean those bastards killed my daughter over her blood? The man roared, standing up. Why? For money. I'll gut them myself. I don't think that's the whole picture. Naruto stopped him before he could do something foolish. If it were that simple, why kill her? If her blood was that valuable, it makes more sense to keep her alive. Same with the others if they're similar. Naruto is right. It makes no sense to kill the source of your income if money is your goal. So they didn't want money? We never received a ransom note or anything. Naruto shook his head, thinking. All the victims had odd symbols traced on them. Almost religious. If they're not using their blood to sell, then it must be for something else. What, some kinda hocus-pocus ritual? Possible, Tenten said, surprising the two. The land of demons was once known for its connection to spirits, both benign and evil. In that time, many such religious groups cropped up. Although a lot of that is ancient history at this point, we're not fully sure what we're dealing with yet, but that's why we're here. If we can find out if the blood is the correlating factor behind these kidnappings, maybe we can figure out who their next target is, and stop them, Tenten added. It didn't bring them any peace, the loss of their daughter would no doubt be a void in their life forever, but it helped. The knowledge that the people behind this would pay could maybe give them some kind of closure. All of that rested in their hands though. If they wanted to prevent any more heartbreak, Naruto had to find these guys and bust them up. He and Tenten stood, saying their final goodbyes to the parents. As they stepped outside, Naruto paused as he saw the young figure sitting by the door. Tanji sat there, hands wrapped around his legs, quiet as a mouse. Naruto sighed and knelt down. Not nice to eavesdrop. She's dead then? Aika isn't coming back? His voice was quiet, vulnerable. I'm sorry, Tanji, but no. The boy curled up more, but stopped as Naruto put a hand on his head. In a gentle voice, he spoke. But I'm going to make sure they never do anything like this again. Even if it takes me my whole life, I won't let them get away with this. The boy peeked out from behind bloodshot, swollen eyes. Naruto offered him a confident smile, and held his hand out for a fist bump. Believe it. Cautiously, Tanji returned it. Go get them. Naruto stood and rejoined Tenten as she made her way across the grass. They had just one more place to check, the scene of the crime. With directions provided to them by the father, the two shinobi made their way into the forest. It wasn't long before they found the nestled grove of herbs Aikawa had once picked from. It was a beautiful place, with enough foliage to provide a barrier against the chilly wind that whipped through the region. Nothing seemed out of place, and there were no signs of a fight. Then again, it had been weeks since she was kidnapped. There was likely to be very few clues left behind. The two scoured the area anyhow, hoping to turn up something. No blood stains, dried or otherwise, or equipment left behind. If there had been footprints, the passage of time had covered them up. Maybe if Kiba and Akamaru were here they could pick up a scent, but Naruto had no such abilities. He wandered about some more, idly picking a few of the herbs to see if Cheyenne could grow some in her garden when Tenten called out, "Naruto, over here!" He was there in an instant, following to where she pointed. A large tree sat to one side of the clearing, gouges along either side of it. He took a closer look and saw that whatever had done this was serrated. The tears along the side were enough to give that away. However, Tenten had further insight. These wounds aren't made by kunai, the shape of the blades wouldn't make sense. Given their spacing and symmetry, my guess is chains. Do you see the indents along the bark here? She pointed at much more shallower gouges that encircled the trunk. Perhaps Aikawa was ambushed here and chained up. No blood, they didn't want to wound her. Too important maybe, Naruto huffed. Well, this is enough for now. We should return to Lady Cheyenne and let her know what happened. Maybe if we can get some medical records we can find people with Aikawa's blood type. She nodded, and soon the two were off again, headed back towards the capital city of Ashia. Come on guys, 3 more laps. I'll make it 5 if I see people slacking. Naruto yelled to his class as they puttered along the improvised track. Geez, he's such a slave driver, Wakita moaned, his shirt soaked with sweat. Kaoru puttered behind them, wheezing. And Mr. Uzumaki he wants us to be better. We just gotta keep at it. Are you okay back there? One Orino glanced back, the larger boy having the stamina of a pack beast. You sound like you're about to puke. Puke if you have to, but keep running. Came the ill-timed repute from their sensei. Kaoru doubled over and heaved, earning a shout of alarm from Wakita. Ahead of them Mitsuji and Noya seemed to have engaged in a race. The two of them kept pace with one another, looking for the precise moment to use a burst of speed to put themselves ahead. Naruto watched them carefully, taking down some notes as they ran. Once again, Kaoru and Momo were pulling up the rear, but at least they weren't alone. He had worried that the disjointed class setup would lead to conflict, but thus far the only person not getting along was Noya. He shouted as she tried to cross in front of Mitsuji and trip him up. This isn't a race, and Mitsuji isn't your enemy. Stop trying to mess with him. She snarled something he couldn't hear from where he was, probably about racing her in turn. The girl felt the need to measure every aspect of their training against whether or not he could do it. He had tried to point out that he had and could, given the fact he graduated, but that didn't work so well on the bald girl. She was a hands-on learner by and far, and her test grades reflected that. I guess everybody has something to work on, he thought to himself, shuffling through last night's homework. It was almost ironic. On the field, Kaoru placed last and Noya first, but the opposite couldn't be more true in the classroom. The bespectacled boy was a genius, perhaps on par with Shikamaru, but thankfully a little more motivated. If he could just get the physical conditioning down, he'd be an excellent squad leader. Noya needed to work on her academics, and maybe even the fundamentals. He didn't want to pry into her past, but her handwriting contained basic grammar and spelling mistakes, the likes of which should be far beneath her. He looked back up at the track to see her sprinting double time. Given her attitude, maybe she's never had a formal education. It made sense. Some kids came to ninja academies on scholarships or sponsorships to get away from a life of poverty. Unfortunately, a ninja needed to be smart and strong to get by in this world. Anything less could spell disaster in the heat of the moment. Naruto knew that more than any of his students. He felt more than heard a presence come up from behind him, but didn't turn to confirm who it was. Lord Uzumaki, Captain Mizuno spoke in his gravelly voice. Apologies for the interruption, sir, but I came to deliver the progress reports on the other groups. He turned. Thank you, Mizuno. And you don't have to call me Lord Uzumaki, Naruto is fine. As you say, sir. Naruto nearly chuckled at the man's demeanor. Then again, he was a soldier. He accepted the packets from the older man and idly sifted through them. All of it was pretty par for the course, save for 1 or 2 outliers in Tenten's class. No major incidents either, which was a plus. Promising to himself to check these out more later, Naruto folded up the notes and tucked them into his jacket. Thank you for all your hard work, Captain. How goes your class, honestly? It's an honor, sir. My class. He turned towards the track. Sometimes I worry that I'm not enough. I didn't rise this high in my career by being soft, but I'm no ninja. I don't want my students to fall behind because I can't wield ninjutsu. Lady Cheyenne mentioned you had good chakra control. He nodded. A requisite for the higher ranks, but most of what I can do is military techniques bolstered by said chakra control. It doesn't compare to some of the stories I've heard about you. I guess my fame precedes me, Naruto chuckled. I have plans to do joint class exercises and drills so everyone can get a taste of each instructor. We've already promised to do school-wide ninjutsu training, however part of being a ninja is going it on your own. How do you mean, sir? I mean well, as a ninja most techniques are either learned, taught, or inherited. Learned techniques are ones a ninja goes out of their way to make, or teach themselves. This applies to many basic to middle-rank jutsu, such as the fire style, fireball jutsu. With the right connections, you can even buy scrolls to help teach yourself how to do it. Mizuno nodded. Taught would be the things we teach the kids in school, and the jutsu your sensei or an older ninja might teach you, yes. Finally, there are inherited techniques. Family jutsu and abilities passed down through the clan and bloodline. Some of these bloodline abilities are exceptionally rare, a mixture of two different chakra natures. These are called Kekkei Genkai. Kekkei Genkai? Mizuno cocked his head to the side. Forgive me, sir, but I've never heard of it. I don't blame you, they're extraordinarily rare. However, I believe I have one of them in my class. The man turned to him, startled. Naruto glanced down at the track and pointed to the brown-haired girl who was helping Kaoru up again. He had seen her abilities during the capture the flag exercise. No hand signs, no warning, but she pulled off a technique he had only seen referenced in Jiraiya-sensei's manuals. It was either a clan ability or a Kekkei Genkai. Momo Edu, she intrigues me. She can manipulate her hair without weaving hand signs or expending much chakra. It reminds me of the current Kazekage's technique. Naruto scratched his chin. Gaara's sand reacted on instinct, as if it were its own person. It provided an almost impenetrable shield that Gaara himself barely had to focus on. It gave him the ability to attack and defend simultaneously. Momoi, however, didn't seem to have the same control over it that he had. She had seemed surprised when it reacted, even scared. The way she seemed to always be expecting a rebuke or a harsh word concerned him. One more thing he would need to juggle with his students. With a sigh, Naruto remembered something. Captain Mizuno, when is your next free period? Now, sir, forgive me for asking, but do you mind running to the palace and asking Lady Cheyenne something for me? Not at all, sir, he saluted. Just give me the word and I'll pass it on. I want to see if she can get someone to find people with this exact blood type. He transcribed the details to the man. In regards to this whole missing person murders thing, we believe we've found our lead. A blood type, sir? Very rare, according to what we've heard. A universal donor. I'm hoping to see if the other bodies share the same blood type, and if they do, find out who in the country also has it. Because if we can pin down the possible victims, he began. Naruto nodded, finishing the thought. Then we can pin down the culprits. The man saluted again and left with haste, disappearing over the hill. Naruto gave the word for his students to take a break, much to their relief. Over the horizon, beyond the walls of Ashiya, a storm brewed. Like an encroaching tidal wave, it devoured the pure blue sky and replaced it with dark gray clouds. It felt ominous to him, like this was merely a harbinger for worse things to come. Naruto knew the dangers of forbidden jutsu, he had seen their effects. If ninja were the ones behind these murders, he didn't want to find out what their final goal was. Something terrible was coming, he could feel it in his gut. He just hoped that he was enough to stop it. Iruka toddled forward, swaying back and forth with such intensity that he almost fell over with every step. Teruho was a little behind his brother, crawling on his hands and knees as they crossed the nursery. You can do it, come to mommy! Cheyenne cooed to the red-headed boy, his pudgy arms reaching out. Show your old man what you're made of, Teruho. Naruto encouraged, lying prone on the ground as his son crawled closer. Man, the little squirts really grew up fast. Felt like yesterday all either of them did was sleep. In response, Iruka let loose a mighty bellow and rushed forward in indignant protest. He made it about a foot before he began to topple over. Cheyenne was quick to catch up and swept up the little man in her arms. Despite the near fall, the bewhiskered child pumped a fist and cried out victory in having made it to his mother. Teruho wasn't nearly as energetic, apparently having started to nod off halfway through his journey. To make it easier for him, Naruto inched closer and closer until they met in the middle. Sweeping the now asleep boy in his arms, Naruto glanced at Cheyenne, who was currently playing with Iruka's hair. Did Captain Mizuno communicate my message to you? Indeed he did. I've staffed Nobuo to the project, and he's sent word to the hospitals and clinics around the country, and asked if they've received any of that specific blood type. I have to ask though, what's your plan? Like I told Mizuno, if this is the common denominator then we can try to bait them out. As of now, we're still in the dark as to the why of what they're doing. I've never seen anything like this except maybe Orochimaru. Naruto's thoughts strayed back to distant memories. Orochimaru? Cheyenne cocked her head to the side, coming to sit next to him. Who's that? He was the teammate of my sensei, Jiraiya, and one of these guys called the Sannin. Basically the strongest ninjas around for years. He went nuts though and got really into experimenting on himself and others. He developed tons of jutsu and medical procedures, but many of them were forbidden due to their danger and cruelty. His fiancée shivered. Sounds like a real creep, you're telling me. He sunk his claws into a dear friend of mine and took him away from us. I've been working to bring him back, but Orochimaru twisted his mind. I infiltrated one of his labs one time on a mission, and the guy was doing some pretty horrible things. He mutated one poor girl so she had fish features, and turned a bunch of others into fish men, Naruto said darkly. If this is anything like what he was doing, I need to put a stop to it as soon as possible. He felt a hand come down on his as Cheyenne squeezed it. With a reassuring smile, she leaned over and planted a small kiss on his cheek. Together, he smiled after a moment, returning the gesture of affection. Nobuo should have some results within the week. Our medical facilities aren't as advanced as what you may be used to, but we're not behind the times. How goes the training with the Rugrats? He laughed. Fine. They're a handful, but all of them are making great strides. Tenten and Mizuno's classes are working out fine as well, although Tenten tells me something of a pecking order has been formed in hers. No one wants to be on the bottom of the totem pole, I guess, but it's not the sort of competitiveness I want to encourage. I'll probably need to talk to her about what we can do to fix it. For now though, how about we put the kids to sleep and retire back to our room? He leaned forward, a knowing grin on his face. Now, Mr. Uzumaki, is that any way for an educator to behave? She said cheekily, standing up. Then again, education is important.